Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam said, teaching is a very noble profession that shapes the character, caliber, and future of an individual. If the people remember me as a good teacher, that will be the biggest honor for me. With these great words, I, Vandana Revankar, Assistant Professor, Department of Business Administration and Placement Coordinator, would like to take you all on an exciting session on role of teachers in placement and career guidance, specially designed for the benefit of our family here at SSMRV. Amidst the difficult times that the world is facing, it's highly appreciable that all of you could participate in today's program. Now, let us have a look at our training center, Paryapti. Today we are joined by our esteemed speakers, Mr. Chalam Plachikkat, who is joining us from Seattle, US, and Mrs. Sudeepta Banerjee from RaiseToPi company that is involved in transforming individuals into self-assured professionals. We are also joined by our dear principal, Dr. Anil Kumar sir, Dr. Nagraj, IQAC head and HOD Department of Commerce, heads of various departments and teaching and non-teaching staff. Now, I call upon Mrs. Rajita, Assistant Professor, Department of Business Administration, to welcome the gathering. Over to you, ma'am. Rajita, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone are doing good and safe. A good teacher can inspire hope, ignite the imagination, and instill a love of learning. The teacher is the one who gets the most out of the lessons, and the true teacher is a learner. With this quote, I would like to welcome you all for today's online workshop on Ambitious-2021. First and foremost, I would like to welcome today's speaker of the session, Shri Chalam sir, co-founder RaiseToPi, who has joined all of us from Seattle, USA. Warm greetings and welcome, sir. Also, I would like to welcome our one more speaker of the session, Srimati Sudeepta Banerjee, co-founder RaiseToPi. Warm greetings and welcome, ma'am. I extend my warm welcome to our beloved principal, Dr. Anil Kumar sir. Welcome, sir. I welcome all the heads of the department of SSMRV College. I would also welcome all the coordinators and my dear faculty members and non-teaching members to this wonderful session. I'm very happy to welcome all the teaching fraternity who have joined us from the other RV institutions and placement coordinators, that is a sister concern from RV family. I welcome you all. I also extend a warm welcome for the members who have joined from International Institute of Aviation. Welcome you all. Once again, I welcome you all for the online workshop on Ambitious 2021 on behalf of Paryapti Training and Placement Center, SSMRV College. I welcome. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajita ma'am. Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of mind to think. It is the teacher who makes the difference, not the classroom. And I must congratulate all our teachers who have given their efforts extremely well, even during pandemic last year, be it making of videos, online classes, and blend of both. And the non-teaching staff has played a very vital role in the operations, admissions, tirelessly contributed to the success of our institution. Hats off to your commitment. As teachers, we have multiple roles in shaping the future of a student in many novel ways. On these lines, we at Paryapti have arranged this webinar, and to give you the more details, I request Dr. Anupama, Assistant Professor, Department of Business Administration and Placement in Charge, to take over. Over to you, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Educationists should build the capabilities of the spirit, capacity of inquiry, creativity, entrepreneurial and moral leadership among the students and become their role model. Good morning, everyone. It gives me an immense pleasure to speak about today's webinar. I'm Dr. Anupama, Assistant Professor, Department of Business Administration and Placement in Charge, SSMRV College. Wholeheartedly welcome all to this webinar. A role of a teacher in the lives of the students finds a greater significance and worth. Here, the teacher is not only the person who teaches the students in the class, but also our non-teaching staff play a very great role in molding the student's life. It is the teacher who provides the necessary ammunition to the students to face the world with grit and courage. If parents give birth to a child and sends them to the schools and colleges, it is the teacher who will prepare the child to face all the uncertainties, challenges, and presents them to the society. A teacher not only imparts education, but great values. Hence, the role of a teacher bears a greater value in the lives of the students. Let me brief you that it's not enough for a teacher to just teach the students what the university syllabus expects them to, but make them understand the concepts in much more meaningful way. It will be appreciated if the teachers can connect the subject concepts to the practical application. It is said that one learns through examples and nativity is the best suited to learn things more quickly. This is how students enter job markets when they can easily connect the basics with their jobs. In present day context, teachers have far more responsibilities, especially at college levels. It is that of playing a role of a job provider by bridging the gap between the students and prospective employer. Teacher is a coach, teacher is a mentor, teacher is a motivator. He is a guide, philosopher, friend, and also a job provider and guides the students for their proper future. This webinar workshop aims at understanding the role of a teacher in the placement of the students in the job market. We at Paryapti with the program Ambitious-2021 are presenting before you to understand and learn the smart skills to prepare our students as job fit and employable in all the ways. The speakers we have with us today, Mr. Chalam, co-founder RaiseToPi, who has graced this occasion from Seattle, USA, has vast experience and has worked with different universities and at national and international platforms. He's going to give us valuable tips on this occasion. Ms. Sudeepta Banerjee, co-founder, RaiseToPi, woman with versatile personality, comes with a great exposure in both education and corporate sector. She will also help us to understand with the current expectation from the corporates and how a teacher can prepare students towards that expectation to reach their career goals. I wholeheartedly thank our beloved principal, Dr. S. Anil Kumar sir, on this occasion for his valuable support, guidance, and being instrumental to conducting this workshop. I'm sure all of us, teaching and non-teaching fraternity at RV, are with great value and play a big role in the lives of the students. Without much waiting, let's get into the webinar. The team Paryapti Training and Placement Center thanks everyone for attending and participating in this program. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Every step we take at Sivananda Sarma Memorial RV College is a result of inspirational leadership of our principal, who always supports us with progressive initiatives. I request Ms. Prerna Ramesh, Assistant Professor, Department of Business Administration, to introduce our keynote speaker for the day, Dr. Anil Kumar sir.
A mediocre teacher tells, a good teacher explains, a superior teacher demonstrates, a great teacher inspires. It gives me immense pleasure and a great honor to introduce a great teacher who has inspired thousands of students, and he is none other than our beloved principal, Dr. S. Anil Kumar. Sir is the principal in SSMRV College. He has been a popular teacher among faculty and students. He has an academic experience of 35 years in the field of commerce and management, both at UG and PG level. Sir has more than 20 years of research experience. He is a recognized guide for many universities from MPhil and PhD programs. He has produced 5 PhDs and 31 MPhils from various universities. He has been doing various UGC-sponsored projects. Dr. S. Anil Kumar has published articles in leading national and international conferences. To mention a few, Griffith University in Australia, Harvard University in Boston, USA, so on. Sir has authored 17 books in the area of financial accounting, corporate accounting, service marketing, entrepreneurship development, production and operation management, and GST. Dr. S. Anil Kumar Sir has been elected as an academic council member of Bangalore University and adjudicator and member of Research Committee, Christ University. He is also a member of Tourism Committee of FKCCI, Bangalore, and also an advisory member of BBMP, Roshni. He has been chairman of Board of Studies and Board of Examination of Bangalore University and other universities. The reflection of his hard work and commitment has transformed into various awards such as Dr. Kumar has been awarded in recognition of dedicated service as a teacher conferred by His Excellency Dr. Hansraj Bharadwaj, the then Governor of Karnataka, organized by Rotary Bangalore South and Karnataka Civil Defense Corps. He has been awarded for achieving excellence in education from RSST. Sir has received Dr. Abdul Kalam Gold Medal Award from Global Economic Progress Research Association, New Delhi, for individual achievement and distinguished service in education and research. He has been an NCC under officer and has won the Best Cadet Award. Dr. Anil Kumar Sir has also been awarded D.Lit by University of Panama, US. Coming back to his key focus areas within SSMRV, his academic innovations like 360-degree education for wholeness model with 5-dimensional approach. Setting up of 30 activity centers are all stronghold strategies which aims to take SSMRV College to greater heights. The direct impact of the same was our college getting A grade by NAC for the first time during 3rd accreditation cycle. It is with pride we are proud to mention that our students got many ranks and gold medals in Bangalore University examinations. SSMRV College has recently been ranked 4th among the 5 colleges in India for best value for money in India Today MRDA Survey 2018. The list is endless, but with due respect to time, let me contain my few words about Dr. S. Anil Kumar. I now request Sir to give us a keynote address.
Sir, you're on mute.
Sir, I request you to give a keynote address.
Yes. Good morning. On behalf of SSMRV College and Rashtriya Shikshan Samiti Trust, RV Educational Institutions, and I would like to once again welcome the learned resource persons of today's program, Mr. Chalam and Ms. Sudeepta Banerjee. So I'm very delighted to hear your lecture today. And today's lecture is mainly on teacher's role. See, as a teacher, your teacher play a very important role, a very pivotal role in the life of any student. So, but here today we have restricted ourselves to placement and career guidance. But a teacher play a still better role. Actually, that's the reason teacher has been compared to, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Sasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. That means he is in a higher level where he can be a role model for any student, be it at school or college, even at the time of doing PhD or even any phase of our life. We need a guru. So guru play a very pivotal role in the life of everybody, you can say. So that's the reason I always say, in Kannada we say, guriya jate guru no idre, success is always guaranteed. That means goal plus teacher is equal to success, you can say. So we may be having a lot of goals, but there must be a teacher who can guide us to be successful in life, at all levels, you can say. So that's the reason teacher play a very important role, and especially I believe, and a teacher must be like a mentor. So that means he is not just a translator, or you can say an academic instructor. He has to play more than that. He has to be, he has to always look for the well-being of students, psychological or physical, whatever kind of well-being of a student. That is very important. So which covers everything actually. That's the reason he should be a kind of a mentor throughout. That's we believe, I personally believe, and also in our institution, we believe in mentorship. That's the reason we have introduced mentorship in our institution very, very seriously. People always feel that, the higher education, is it required? No, I feel that mentorship is required at every level. You need a mentor, and teachers have greater role in being a mentor. And in our institution, considering the importance of this, in our institution, we have taken it very seriously, and we are doing it very systematically. So as a case study, I have been introduced this particular concept in our institution to assist our students in all aspects, in academics, in their personal, in psychological, the well-being of the students. So we have introduced this particular system. In this system, each faculty has been given certain number of students as to handle, and as soon as they enter first year degree program, they always maintain complete record of the students, including their personal records, their background, their social issues, everything is recorded. They'll be knowing each and everything about students, so that they can guide at each level on different issues. So once they understand the students properly, definitely they can assist them. Suppose if they are not that good in academics, weak in academics, we always help them by engaging them separately outside the classroom. And also we also have a system called peer teaching. We can assist our students through peer tutors. That means we make one team of students, peer tutors and peer learners, and tutors will be given 5 to 6 peer learners, so that they can assist them in academics, and so that it helps the students. Similarly, remedial coaching system we have introduced to help students in many ways. For all these things, teacher monitors everything. Teachers take care of all these activities. So teacher play a very important role in their academic growth of a student. Similarly, any other psychological issues or personal issues are also handled by teachers through counseling. They do counsel the students, and if it is beyond their limit, because it's a specialized area, we have an tie-up with some of the counseling centers, and we send them, or we call them here to institution and give the counseling for those students. So these are all the concern. You must have the concern for the students in solving their personal issues. That is the role of a faculty or a teacher. So that's the reason we have counseling cell, etc. So a teacher play a very, very pivotal role in the life of student. It is not just these two. Students' life means they need to have a job, or they should have a career. Career need not be always a job. Of course, it is for anything we, as per the passion, as per his passion, whatever he would like to do it, I think we should encourage them to do it. That's the reason we encourage in our institution. All the teachers are in charge of all these activity centers, I believe personally, and also we have about 30 activity centers in our institution. So that brings teacher and student together very, very close, and they work together for all the activities, including community services, we have Red Cross, the defense, civil defense, NSS, NCC, then the Eco Club, the Health Club, like that, theater club, music club. See, that means the whole purpose is to integrate, bring student and teachers together, and be together and learn a lot of things from the faculty, from the students, from the teachers. So that kind of environment has been created in our institution, and there will be office bearers of 10 to 15 in each activity centers. So they'll also learn leadership qualities. They learn that they will get that confidence of meeting people, talking to them, get the things done. See, these kind of the confidence building, the personality enhancement happens because of these kind of initiatives taken by our teachers. So teachers are really a very important, have an important place in the life of students. That's the reason we at SSMRV College have integrated these two, teacher and faculty, together and working in all the areas, not only in academics, in even extracurricular activities. That's the reason we have a separate the dimension in our six dimension 360-degree education for wholeness model. We have 6 dimensions we have added actually. One is academics, another one is skill enhancement, and third one, the extracurricular activities. Fourth one comes the career development, and the fifth one, the ethics and governance. See, that is also very important. It's a responsibility of the faculty, students, to inculcate the value system in the students. So that is an important role. That's the reason we have added that dimension in our 360-degree educational wholeness model. And the last one we recently added, that is the psychological well-being of the students, especially during the present scenario. Psychologically, people are very down. I think we need to help them in all respect, because people almost for 1 year, students are sitting at home and listening to our online lectures. It's not that easy. So even for faculty, I'll tell you. So I think we need to look into the psychological well-being. So in our 360-degree education for wholeness model, which we have developed exclusively in our SSMRV College, has these 6 dimensions. And in all these dimensions, teacher has a role. Teacher has a very pivotal role. And I am very, very happy in our institution. We have been using this model from past 6-7 years, you can say, and we have been very successful. We have seen the complete transformation in the life of students from first year to the final year. We have seen in terms of academics, we have got ranks and they are very successful in doing in higher studies in various universities, and also in government IAS, and that is competitive examinations, and successful in companies. So we have seen that effect because of this kind of involvement by our teachers, who have molded our students to become successful in their life. So that's the reason we have been getting even the companies. See, we are in every year we are getting 50 to 60 very well-known, reputed companies to our institution, including KPMG, E&Y, all these companies, top 500 companies. Among them, some of the companies are visiting And about 96% of our students are placed in our institution. That is amazing, I'll tell you. I cannot believe sometimes, but it will not happen in one day. You cannot just appoint somebody and get the placement. You cannot buy the jobs. We need to provide them good capable students. We need to put in a lot of efforts from the day one they join our institution. That's the reason when they join our institution, we need to understand them. That's the reason we do profiling of students, and we try to understand and guide them what they are good and where they have to go and how they have to go in these 3 years, precious 3 years. And that is the change game. Undergraduate program should change their life, should help them to be successful in their life. So that is the role of a teacher, that the teacher has to take care of the students in these 3 years. Hand-holding of these students in these 3 years play an important role. That is what is happening in our institution, and we have been doing it very successfully. I'm very grateful, I'll tell you, to my own faculty who have, whatever I say, whatever we decide in the interest of students' holistic development and the purpose, the intention is to see that every student becomes successful in life, to be happy, to be successful in life. That is the purpose of this institution, and we have all been working towards it, and we have been successful. We have seen the success stories in these 6 years. So that gives more satisfaction. For any teacher, gets satisfaction if some student comes and tells that I have been selected in one of the best institutions, one of the best companies. I have been successful in life. Then teacher feels very happy. So that is the kind of satisfaction we have been getting as a teacher. And so I think today our placement cell Paryapti has really selected a very good topic, teacher's role and in the placement and career guidance. Of course, in our college, we have been doing some certain things regarding this. Profiling is one. Then we do career counseling in the beginning. As soon as they get into our college, first 15 days, we invite people from all fields, including NGOs, including theater people, not just companies, I'm telling you. From all fields, we tell them that these are the areas you can have your, you can be part of it. And we tell them, you live your passion. You live your passion. Don't just decide that you should just do a degree, get into a company. You need to live your passion, to go become a theater artist, become a painter, become a singer, do whatever you want, but you decide today and you need to plan yourself for these 3 years. For that, we give career counseling in the beginning itself. And of course, it's a regular process continuously. And then we do training, regular training for the students. In the sense, training as far as the soft skills and hard skills are concerned, we have very, very professionals like Career Launcher or NICT. Like, we have very professional people who come and take the classes. And we have the domain knowledge training programs. But depending on the type of students, type of courses they take. For example, for BCom, there are some of these softwares like Tally, etc. And and also as part of placement, we are giving them the pre-placement training program. That means we train them how to pass in aptitude, GD, and interviews. That's 30 to 40 hours of training mandatory for every student of our college. That is the thing, whether they go for jobs or higher education for become an entrepreneur, they should have this kind of quality. That's why we made it mandatory, and it is a part of our institute, a part of our curriculum. See, it is not that whoever is interested can take it. No, everything, whatever we do, it is mandatory for every student in our institution. So that they will realize only maybe after they leave the college, but we know the importance as a teacher. We know the importance of all this support system we have created in our institution. So apart from this, in the present context, we are also concentrating on providing the technology-based the programs, which is very important today. Changing times, I think we need to give this. For example, we have a separate unit called RV Skills, where we provide the programs, that is the technical programs, like for BCom students, digital marketing, then analytics, business analytics is given. It is mandatory for everybody. Either they have to select the business analytics or this one. Anyone is compulsory, mandatory, and part of the curriculum. Similarly, for BBA program, it is AI in marketing and digital marketing. These are two provided, and they have to select any one. Similarly, for BCA students, we have given AI and machine learning as mandatory program, one. Another one is enterprise technology and data center architecture program, which is unique, one of its kind in India. I'll tell you, ours is the only college, non-engineering college, having a tie-up with Upstream Technologies Hong Kong, and they have established a lab in our institution, and they are conducting this particular program called Advanced Diploma in Enterprise Technology and Data Center Architecture. And they have, under CSR, they have invested money in our institution. We have provided the infrastructure for them. So this is mandatory. Any one of these two, enterprise technology or the AI and machine learning, any one of these two must be selected by the student. So this kind of add-ons, which is really help them in getting their job, or they can start their own business in digital marketing, whatever it is, entrepreneur, become an entrepreneur. So that kind of a support system should be provided by the institutions, and it should be supported by these teachers. So without the support and without the involvement of teachers, this will not happen. This cannot happen. So teachers play an important role. They understand the intentions of institution, and they have to implement in the right sense. Then only it becomes successful, and students will be successful in their life. And we create a productive human resource for the country. That is very important. And any individual should not be burdened to the family, to the society, and to the country. That's the reason it is our responsibility as teachers to support in all the ways, psychologically, in every respect. Teacher play a very important role. That's the reason the role of a teacher is, I'll tell you, he's a superhuman being, according to students. So he should be like a superhuman being, and he should be always behind with the good intention to help our students. I'm very happy to share my whatever the little I could, my experience, and as a teacher, I have given this, and I'm really happy. Today we have two eminent speakers who can highlight more on placement and career opportunities, etc. in these two in this webinar. And I would like to appreciate the initiative taken by Dr. Anupama, Professor Vandana, then other entire team. Again, many teachers, and of course the non-teaching staff who have taken interest. See, during this pandemic, there's so much of tension going on. Even then, in our institution, I'll tell you, every day at 9:30, I'll I will be ready. Every faculty will be ready to do some webinar or workshop or the other. Yesterday we had 9:30 to 12:30. Again we had 12:30 to 3:30. Or again today also we have 2:30 one more program. 6 o'clock one more program. See, every teacher is engaged. Yeah, they are engaging the students in the right direction. Otherwise, students they have no other they will no other work. They will be simply wasting their time. So in that direction, I have a high appreciation, highest regard for teachers. So they play a because they even they have played important role in my life, and it's our responsibility to play a very important role in the life of students. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thanks a lot, sir. That was really very, very appreciable from you that you value the efforts of teachers, and we definitely have a right guru and guri, both. That is a right direction and a guru like you to move towards the right direction. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Now, I request Mrs. Bharti, Placement Coordinator, to introduce our speaker, Mr. Chalam Plachikkat.
Good morning to one and all. I am Bharti NS, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce. Chalam Plachikkat, co-founder, RaiseToPi, Seattle, America. Chalam has over 15 years of product management and leadership experience. Chalam was most recently VP and business head of Lenskart.com, making vision testing and correction accessible and affordable in rural areas. Previously, he has served as COO of Shikshana Foundation and as head of product for Amazon's worldwide digital commerce systems. He has an MBA from Cambridge University and an MS in electrical engineering from the University of Maryland. We are overwhelmed to have you as our resource person for the workshop, sir. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction. Would it be all right if Sudeepta went first? Because I just think we have a certain order planned in terms of how we would like to take you through this.
Now I request Mrs. Bharti Rathod, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Applications and Placement Coordinator, to introduce Mrs. Sudeepta Banerjee. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vandana ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, one and all. It is a great honor for me to introduce and welcome the chief guest of today's program, Ambitious-2021, Ms. Sudeepta Banerjee, co-founder RaiseToPi. Ms. Sudeepta has 15 years of experience in public relations and leadership of youth development programs. Most recently, as Director of Partnership for Shikshana Foundation, she scaled their Girl Empowerment Program across Karnataka. Madam was co-founder of Green Pantry, a health food company that trained and worked with specially abled youth and destitute women. She has been a leader at Kingfisher Airlines, USA, Indo-American Arts Council, New York, United Nations Youth Development Program, and CRY, America. She holds a degree in classical dance and was the only Indian to perform in the 60th anniversary celebrations of United Nations. We are privileged to hear you, madam. Thank you.
Thanks, Bharti, for the kind introduction.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. And it was great listening to Dr. Anil Kumar. I really enjoyed listening to him yesterday also and today also. And each day I see and hear a different perspective about different things from him. I really connect a lot with everything that you said, that teachers are the pillars and they shape up how the students, how the students flare in their life, and not just after graduating, but throughout their life. And the good teacher really has a great impact, because if I look back in my life, the couple of good teachers that I have gotten, still till date, like has a great impact on me and my thought process overall. So it was a great speech. Vandana, can I just get the screen sharing rights? If
Yes, ma'am, you can do that. Already shared.
Thank you. Thank you. So I will just quickly do a recap of yesterday so that faculties can know that what we spoke to the students about, and then Chalam would connect the dots further. What RaiseToPi is, again, like you all have been told already, we do work for inspiring students to take charge of becoming successful, happy, and very competent, self-assured adults. So I think whatever I heard from Dr. Anil Kumar, it completely aligns with what the Institute's thought process is, and this is our goal, our vision statement. Now, coming to what we spoke to students about is that students do need real-world experience. And when I say real-world experience, everything that they do in college, in the corporate world, is taken as extracurricular. And it is great, and colleges should continue to do everything that you are doing. I was really happy to hear that finally there are colleges like yours who are doing things like this. But when we talk about this real world experience, is something which is not only extracurricular, but something like a part-time work, internship, passion project, which has created significant impact, right? Just grades don't help employers differentiate your students from other candidates unless the student is a super achiever. And when I mean, so what I mean by super achiever is are the students who are gold medalists or are winning sports competitions. Like, these are very different level of students. But if those students are not super achiever, then only grades are not going to be enough for them to be differentiated. Then organizations value street smartness, right? And street smartness is the word of the day and word of this era. And as much as grades, most of the time, they evaluate more than grades, right? Because if there is a student, and I have seen that working with different corporates where I have been recommending candidates, because I do partner a lot with corporates, they do ask me, do you know someone for this role or that role? I have seen candidates who get through, despite of my recommendation, are the ones who come with like a very different kind of exposure, has real world exposure and has street smartness. And street smartness is more or less confidence aligned with a great story that what they have achieved, right? That is what street smartness is. Next, those who tell stories rule the world. It was, said in 427 BC by Plato. Now that still holds true. There are people who are doing courses like storytelling for job interviews. I have that there to show you that there is a course going on out there that students go pay money and they learn how to tell stories in job interview. What they are missing is, if students don't do the work and they don't have a real world experience, then they will not have a great story for telling in the interviews. So these are two connected. And this is what we highlighted to the students also yesterday, that yes, you definitely do need the superpower of storytelling. You do need to understand what kind of stories are needed for the powerful resumes and interviews, and then work on those stories. Understand how to communicate those stories in the right way. That communication is very important, and learn to connect their stories of real world experience with the expectations of the hiring manager. And this is another skill which is like really important to gain, making that connection. Coming to all students can make it big. This is something which we spoke about yesterday, and I wanted to highlight that this was one of the key things. It doesn't matter if the student is a topper or average. The average students can also make it big. I am one of them. It doesn't matter if the student is from a wealthy background or middle class or underprivileged. Working with Section has showed me many stories of really underprivileged students making it big. And we know, all of us know multiple stories of middle class family students making it really big up the corporate ladder. And yesterday we did present such stories to the students. It doesn't matter if the student is a boy or a girl or any other gender. And it doesn't matter if the student is physically 100% capable or specially able. especially being associated and working with companies like Dell and Cisco for so long, I have seen how specially abled people have been really, really making a difference and been, have become achievers, really top achievers in the corporate sector, right? All students stand a chance to make it big. What do they need and what can professors work on to make sure that they make it big? And these are the 5 C's. The 4 C's are the one which actually the professors and the teachers can really help in developing, and we can make your work easier because that is what we do at RaiseToPi. Whatever I heard from Dr. Anil Kumar, that there's a lot of burden on profs already there. And let's be honest, like teaching the syllabus itself and completing it is a huge task, and making sure that students do get all the hard skills from the syllabus that they should get. And on top of that, all the other work is definitely like you people are doing a commendable job. We started RaiseToPi with this vision that we can actually take that burden off from professors, and we can work on developing these 4 C's in the students, right? And all the people here know the value of these 4 C's, which is critical thinking, creative thinking, communication skills, and collaboration. Once these 4 C's are developed through a real world project, which they would work on with us or in real life, these 4 C's are bound to develop, because in a real world project, they would be solving a problem for a real world target audience, understanding what the audience wants, analyzing, and then figuring out what exactly could be the solution which is within their reach. And they can actually create that solution to help the audience. And in the process, they would be talking and meeting with a lot of external stakeholders. They could be vendors, they could be other organizations, they could be corporate folks, all of these, right? So these 4 C's develop in the process. And what they gain after developing these 4 C's and after working on a really commendable real world project, which has a real impact, is confidence. So confidence is an outcome of these 4 C's. And this is what we spoke to students about yesterday. And with this recap, I will wind up this presentation, and I will hand it over to Chalam because he has a hard stop at 11:30, given it will be too late for him in Seattle already. And once Chalam finishes, then I will take it over again. Yeah. So Chalam, over to you.
Sorry, if there are questions, I think my point is that this is actually a very important foundational part, right? The part that Sudeepta just covered is very foundational. It's very difficult to have the next phase of that conversation unless we've explored and aligned on this a little bit. So I'm happy to. Are there more slides you have on this, Sudeepta, or can we do some discussion at this point?
We are open to discussion now. We can take the questions.
Yeah. So I think importantly, I think we also have to recognize, I think a lot of folks here were not part of the webinar yesterday, right? So you may have some questions in terms of the flow we just mentioned, right? But I think one of the stories that, as Sudeepta points out, right, one of the stories that really came out in Sudeepta's talk, in Dr. Nivedita Mukherjee also joined us yesterday, and in their talks, is the importance of really being able to tell a very compelling story, compelling narrative about yourself, right? And this is very important so that everyone can understand you. I mean, if I think about this way, we were listening to Dr. Anil Kumar some time ago. He's able to tell us such a clear, coherent story about how all these different initiatives are able to come together and form and mold the student at SSMRV, right? And that gives us an impression, and it tells us, okay, this is the kind of person I can look forward to meeting. This is the kind of person. I mean, now my expectations are sky high, right? So so hopefully every person will now meet this bar. And so the point is that this is what so he's such an amazing storyteller, right? He's giving us a good sense of, he's painted a picture for us of the contributions of teachers, of the qualities that he's now expecting in his students, that he wants to be able to deliver in his students. Now, that's very effective storytelling. Now, obviously, we don't need a young undergraduate to come out being able to be such an effective storyteller. We don't need that, right? And I've been a hiring manager for over 10, 12 years now, that is not my first expectation that this person will be an outstanding storyteller, although we do meet them from time to time, don't get me wrong, right? But the expectation is that they will be able to tell us, here's what I have done, here's why that is important, and here's how, you know, I stand out in some way. Here's something different that I have done that I think positions me well for your company, right? Or not even company, positions me well to the position that you are hiring. That's really important, right? Because people don't yes, I know that there are lots of positions in India that get hired for the company, especially just as you come out of undergraduate years. But there are also lots of positions that are not really marked as saying this is an entry-level role, right? It's a role. It's a job. The question is who can do it, who can't do it. And there are people who are able to come out. And that's why yesterday, for example, Sudeepta pointed out this example of Aditya Arora, right? Who comes out of his college years and is appointed CEO. Now, this is a super rare case. Now, you can imagine what the conversation must have been like, right? Now, clearly, no one is going to come in a bus to SSMRV or IIM or anywhere and then say, I'm hiring for a CEO. Hello, please line up over here in your placement cell and let's all sit down and have that conversation and I'll give you this role. That's not going to happen, right? That's a door you have to open yourself, right? So now the question is, and this is why, as you were talking, one of the big thoughts I was having is, it sounds like we're doing so much. I mean, I'm really amazed at all the effort that the SMRV team is putting together to help out your students. You know, frankly speaking, and I'm not speaking ill of Cambridge, but I didn't get that level of support at Cambridge. I'm very happy, by the way, with the level of support I got at Cambridge. Don't get me wrong, right? I still have great relationships there. I still love the people I worked with. I love the school, but the level of support wasn't quite like this, right? So that's the good news. The good news for Cambridge on the other side of this equation is I think it made us all stronger. Right? I think it's a really important question to ask, you know, are our students empty vessels that we're just going to fill? I don't think they are, right? So how do we get them to be in a place where they make the maximum value of all your efforts, where they are pulling, where things are not getting pushed on them, but they are pulling. And they're saying, oh, I've got this opportunity, I've got that one, and I've got that one. Now, how can I make most of this and this? Now, if I combine this and this, I can make this into something else, right? I think we really need to get them to that place where they're able to pull, right? Now, you can talk about it as pulling, you can talk about it as taking charge, right? But this is something that, as a hiring manager, I'll be very honest, this is one of the things I look for. Right, I look for, when people say we're looking for a spark, I'm really looking for someone who can come in and work autonomously at some simple things, can go get help for some simple things. Those are the kinds of things I'm looking for, right? And so now to tie this back to what Sudeepta was saying, in terms of getting real world experience, right? So again, to reiterate, right, when we say real world experience, the number one thing we look for in real world experience is, does this person work with a real audience or a real stakeholder? Did they produce this work for a teacher, or did they produce this work for someone who's going to use their work? Right? To us, if you produce it for a teacher, that's, you know, a learning project. Right? But if you produced it for a real audience and then your teacher evaluated you based on what the real audience thought of your work, that makes it a real world project. So this is a very important distinction for us, right? And this is, and because we feel like when you work in this way in the real world, you have the opportunity to iterate, right? How many of us in our professional lives have got things right the first time? I mean, this is an amazing webinar, right? Like, you know, I love that you're organizing this, as Dr. Anil Kumar pointed out. You know, you've been pulling these things together. I mean, you have 2 of them, 3 of them today. I don't know how you do it. I'm just amazed. But then the point is, as you're doing that, you have an audience, right? And you didn't get it right in attempt number 1. I would, I mean, if you did, that's amazing, right? But that's very rare. That hardly ever happens in the world, right? Almost everything needs a couple of attempts to get really good, to really hit its stride and momentum, right? So how many such opportunities do we get in a non-real world situation, in an academic situation? In academics, it is much harder to do that. You have a fixed timeline, you follow it, you submit it, and then you get a mark, right? Now, the thing is that's not, so an academic situation has its own constraints. I'm not knocking the academic process. I'm just saying that it's different, right? Whereas in a professional real world context, the ability to iterate is very important. And the ability to iterate gives one a freedom, because now you're able to correct your mistakes. Oh, you didn't get it right the first time? Don't worry. As they say, failure is not permanent. You can get back on the horse, get it right the second time, or the third time, or the 50th time, whatever it is. So what does it take to go on that journey, that iteration journey? It takes the ability to pick yourself up from a defeat, to not lose heart when the time is gone, to know how to work with your team. Because believe me, by the time you failed the second time, by the time you failed the third time, you'll be telling yourself that, oh, this person messed up. If only this person worked a little harder. You know, this person doesn't show up properly for the meetings. That's why it's happening. Or it's always someone else's fault, right? Until you know to understand that, hey, this is, what can I do differently? How can I, even if I think you need to work differently, how can I have the conversation with you in a constructive way? Right? Now, these are things that we are putting off till folks get into the professional world before those conversations begin. And in my view, that's late. Ideally, it should happen sooner. Right? And the point is, if people have asked me, you know, because I've studied in India, I've studied in the US, I've studied in the UK, people ask me, what's the difference you see, right? And I think the big difference I see, the first difference I saw as soon as I came to the US and started studying was how much more assertive people from the US were, right? I mean, of course, the graduate school in America is full of international students, right? So they're all coming from the India, you know, I had people from my class from India, Iran, China, etc., and they were not that different from us. But the folks who went to, who had studied in the US as they've grown up, or the UK or Australia, etc., it was different because they were operating in a place where they were expressing their views candidly. They were, and it was not necessarily rude, right? It was just assertive. It's a very different style of communication. And that's a style of communication that you have to eventually learn in your professional space. There's no getting away from it, right? Except do you really need to spend the first 10 really formative years of your professional career learning that, or can you do that a little sooner? I think that's the question. And I think the more exposure you have from a professional perspective, from a real world experience, like Sudeepta yesterday was describing her experience doing sales in a jewelry store. I'm amazed by that, right? What an experience to have as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, the ability to negotiate, the ability to understand which customer is looking for what, right? Whom should I pitch this more expensive set to, right? And this less expensive set to, right? Whom should I basically try to quickly convert because I think they're going to change their mind soon? These are amazing skills to have. And this is a skill you're going to need at any point, right? It doesn't matter what role you're doing. Yesterday, one of the students asked, as a finance person, do I need these skills? Absolutely. What do you think investment bankers do? Investment bankers are fundamentally salespeople. I don't know what image people have of investment bankers, but that's really core in investment banking, right? And then, of course, unless you're doing an analysis, pure analysis kind of work, right? Then you're actually a fund manager, right? You're not an investment banker. It's a different role profile. So the point is, you need this real world experience helps you understand how to relate to others, stuff that you might have heard theoretically as a soft skill that you might have discounted. Because when you hear about this is the difference I see between theory of hard skill and theory of soft skill. Theory of soft skill sounds like anyone can do it. Theory of hard skill sounds like hardly anyone can do it. But once you get past the theory, anyone can do hard skill. Soft skills take years to get right. If you can learn your hard skills in 4 years or 3 years, you're going to take 15 years to do the soft skills. It just takes a long time, and then you keep learning and learning and learning, right? And it never ends, right? So this journey is good to start early, and then you can really absorb it from mentors, because then people will also teach you. Because when the older you are, people become more and more reluctant to take you by the hand and walk you through this, right? Even as a mentor, right? If you think about the last time you mentored someone, were you happier to mentor a 15-year-old, a 25-year-old, or a 45-year-old? Whom were you happiest mentoring? Most likely, you didn't even offer the 45-year-old your mentorship. Very often, right? You were like, no, sorry, this person will either take it badly or, I don't even want to go there, right? The 25-year-old, you might give them some advice and then they'll say, okay. And then you go like, okay, done. Let's not do that. Let's not actually, if that person will say, go mind your own business, and you'll say, fine, I'll go mind my own business, right? First of all, the 15-year-old won't tell you to mind your own business, and you know that. So you're much more likely to persist. As Dr. Anil Kumar said, as a teacher, I know better. I'm just going to make you do it. But would you do that to a 25-year-old? Would you do that to a 45-year-old? It doesn't matter whether they're your teacher or not, whether you're their teacher or not. You just won't, because the chemistry has changed. The equation between you and them has changed. So it is great if you can get that real world experience earlier, because people will mentor you very nicely as you go along on that journey. So this is why we stress and keep harping on this real world experience thing so much, right? And getting those pieces of exposure. So I think I should just pause here. Any questions on what we've been discussing? Because this stuff is what we are saying is needed for students, and then we'll come to the faculty. Usually no questions means people may not be at their desks anymore.
Anybody wants to ask any questions, please use the chat box, or you can also use this mics.
That's a great question. So I think the first thing is, how do you even start? Like, and the question here is how to mentor older people. How do you even start? How do you even know that they want to be mentored? And I think the short and sweet answer to it is they will ask you, right? Usually that's what this is something that you see among people who are more successful and people who are less so. The people who are more successful are the folks who learn what is known as more and more as intellectual humility, right? The people who know what they don't know and don't shy away from saying so and asking for help, right? And people who recognize that these are things I want to learn more, right? So for example, someone asked me recently, maybe this is about 5 years ago, how do I think big? And this person was was about 28 to 32. I'm going to guess because I didn't ask them their age, but I'm going to guess somewhere in that 28 to 32 range. Not that old, but nonetheless, it gets harder and harder, right? As you get older to ask for these things. And we had a good constructive conversation, because once you've asked the question, how do I do something? Then all kinds of conversations become possible. Believe me, then it's no different, right? The main thing is you'd have to maybe position your suggestions as questions rather than as comments, right? So that that person can go back and evaluate it, right? Versus you doing all the hard work. Because otherwise you just tell them, here's what you need to do, X, do step 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's my algorithm, go execute it, you will succeed, right? But interestingly, I have found school counselors, I have found professors who are working with 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds in the US and in the UK taking that counseling approach as well, right? It's very much like, maybe you're onto something that I don't know. And I think that sets it up as a very healthy discussion, healthy debate, right? And then that person can go think on it, experiment. Maybe they're on the wrong track, let them fail, come back, try again, right? So, but the point is, it always has to start with a request from them, right? It's like a bhavatim viksham dehi, right? You have to start there. If you don't ask for the grant, you're not going to get the grant, right? And so the question is, how do you make them feel comfortable that they can ask you this question? And this goes to this creating a place of what we call psychological safety, where you don't get judged for not knowing, right? And this comes back to what Satya Nadella did in Microsoft, where he said, I want to learn it all. And to have that growth mindset, for growth mindset, you need that psychological safety. So as you want to be mentoring older people, first you have to create the psychological safety where older people feel like they can come and say that they don't know something. And then you can take it from there. Sudeepta, I want to take the second so I don't monopolize. Like, what if students have no clue in choosing their career path? How can a teacher help them?
Yeah, but before that, when I had a follow-up question to that. So if there is no
he did.
The other side, how to mentor without hurting their ego? So
you want me to take it or you want to go?
Yeah, means I think what you said towards the end, that ties up, right? Like, because if there is a space that you have created of psychological safety, that where the person feels like that he has to come and he or she can come to you and ask a question, will actually make you attractive enough for that person to come and ask that, okay, how do I do this, right?
Yeah.
But if that is not happening, I would say in my experience, I stay out of it. I don't really, I do keep creating that space, but I don't tell that I'm here to help unless they ask me a question. But that's me. Chalam, you have something to add here?
Yeah, no, I think that's generally correct. At the same time, if you want to test the waters, usually a good place to start is by asking a question. Like I said, he said, I saw that you did it this way. That was interesting. How did you think about that? Right? Maybe, if you said, for example, there's no request from the other side how to mentor them, but presumably there's a specific topic on which you're trying to mentor them, right? Now, if there is, then you might have seen some behavior. You might have seen an example. Then you might say, I saw you doing some sort of thing. And I'm curious to know how you thought about it, why you did it in a particular way, because I'm also trying to learn, right? And that can set off an interesting conversation. Or if that person truly shows no intellectual humility and says, yeah, I know best and I'm just doing it, then believe me, there's nothing you can say that's really going to land on them. So you might, as Sudeepta said, you're better off saving your breath.
Yeah, right. Anyway, the second one, what if students have no clue in choosing their career path? How a teacher can help? So the students I have mentored, and I can quote from mentoring 50 odd students, see, if most of them will have no clue, especially when they are like 16, 17, just entering the college, no. So making them, yes, you as Dr. Anil Kumar said, already career counseling is happening. That's one way. But career counseling is also something where there is too much information going in their brain. So if you go with the psychological theory, no information is also not good, and too much information also makes them switch off. And it's very physiological. It is not, it's life science actually. There is nothing that they are doing intentionally. There is so much of information that they are not able to grasp. So how do we deal with that? But the brain is learning, like whatever they are seeing, there's an image that is there in the brain, but they are not processing it. So what I do is, because mostly I have met students of both kinds who have gone through career counseling and who have not gone through career counseling. So the ones who have gone through career counseling, I just push them to think critically, and I say, okay, for next 2 weeks, why don't you start writing down or cutting the newspaper clip out, or writing down the news that you find most interesting, okay, in the entire world of news. And in that 2 weeks, every day, 15 days, they do that. And then I ask them that, see, the pattern is visible to you, what your interest is, right? And that's how I have found someone who is very interested in pursuing media, and the guy now is pursuing journalism, right? And that's how I have found someone who was very interested in photography. And then when I asked him that, are you very interested in photography? And he showed me like a bunch of pictures taken from a very, very cheap phone, which was amazing, right? And I'm like, if you can do something like this with the phone, then you are a born photographer, and that's what you should pursue. And he pursued, and he's working as a photographer with one of the big brands. So that's how I have dealt with. So that is one way of making them think critically. There could be multiple ways of making them think critically. Like think, like research, dive deep into yourself and come and tell me what is that you're finding interesting. And then we can discuss what career you can choose. Now, the ones who don't go through career counseling, I don't know if we often, or the faculties here, meet that kind of it, because these are from extremely underprivileged background. So I don't think that's very relevant for this conversation here. So Anupa, did that answer your question? Do you think you got what you wanted, or you have any further clarification?
I think while we are waiting for them, I think there's one other piece I would just definitely highlight, right? It goes back to having, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm misinterpreting your question, but I think a lot of young people get accused of being clueless. I think a different way of thinking about that same problem is that they are saying, I'm seeing a whole bunch of round holes here, but I'm a square peg, right? So if you present me solution options that are all round holes and I'm a square peg, then it's natural that I will be clueless. Right? Alternatively, if I'm a square peg and I see nothing but loads and loads of square holes, I'm again going to be clueless. Right? So this is natural. It's a very natural human thing. And now, how do you break out of that in a normal day-to-day scenario? Because you come across that, right? You're looking for detergent powder. You go to the supermarket. There are 20 options. How do you decide which one you're going to pick? Now, imagine we still lived in a world where salespeople went around and did that work for us. They will get angry with us, right? They'll be like, you people are so clueless. You've come to the store, you don't even know what you want. don't you, like, surely you know which detergent you want, but this one has that offer, so should I take that? These are natural questions. So if this is happening to us on a day-to-day life, why would it not happen for something as critical as someone's career? Right? And I think this is something that we also have to understand that person's mindset, right? And I think in a way, this is where a couple of things might be really useful to keep in mind from our side. First, career is not a straight line at all. This whole notion that you're going to get on this career path and then you're going to be on this career for life is from 1990s. It's not valid anymore, right? So one of the things you might want to try and telling them is take a bet, start something. You don't like it, change. What's the big deal, right? If you don't, if start with something that you're strong at, as Sudeepta pointed out. She said it so well, like in terms of these photographs, this person is very good at that, and it started there. I strongly suspect that this person will start with that, and then they will say, but I'm still dissatisfied with this aspect of my job. Then it'll be great. So let's fix that. So how would you fix that issue? And what is the other job that you could be doing that would fix that? And I can tell you from my own personal experience, when I started my career, the role that was a perfect fit for me did not even exist. And it took, by the time I got out of business school, I absolutely just lucked into the precursor of the role, not even the role. And then 3 years as I was doing this role, the role that was a perfect fit for me actually opened up. So but this will happen to a lot of people. I've seen this happening to other colleagues as well. The place where you'll come into your own, it's called coming into your own, right? That takes time and it takes iteration. It's because it's real world. Except you yourself are the audience. Now, how do you make it work for you? The beauty of it is your audience is telling you every morning whether this is working for you or not. That audience, you cannot shut them up also, because they will tell you morning, noon, night, constantly whether it's working. So if you know it's not working, great, correct the course. I think this course correction iteration is like a very key message that Sudeepta and I talk about a lot.
So adding to what Chalam said, right? For example, as per my family, till the age of 32, despite of having 2 kids, I was clueless about what really is my true calling. I was working, I was doing well, I was making money, if that is considered to be the indicators of wealth. But my father figured out that even though I was making money, I wasn't very happy with what I was doing. And he's like, you need to figure out what makes you happy, right? Because making money will not make you happy in the long term. When you will be in my age, you will be dissatisfied, which he said that he feels at the age of 60 back then. And it's like, yeah, so he's like, course correct. You don't need to be doing what your dad did, feeling very dissatisfied at the age of 60 with the kind of work he did, because he also made money. So is that what you want, or you want something more fulfilling? And then dive deep, figure out what you want to do. But if that would have happened early, I would not have spent several years feeling dissatisfied, because it has an impact. It has an impact on me. It has an impact on my kids, my family, husband, relationships, everything, friendships. So it is good if students can figure it out earlier in life, because that dissatisfaction, and we are talking from experience, we know a lot of people working in corporates, they face day in and day out. Okay, they're all making a lot of money, but they still don't feel fulfilled and don't feel happy, right? Whereas I made the career switch and I started working for an NGO, I made half the money that I made for corporates, but I felt really fulfilled. And I did design my life accordingly, like based on what I am making. And still it was good enough to sustain. So now I'm not saying all students should go and work for NGOs, but what I'm trying to say is that if they figure it out early, what is really interesting, right? And what I see in these students now, unfortunately, students I have mentored are still in their early 20s, very early to say that if they are happy or if they are not happy. Right now, they are in a bubble, have gotten jobs, working, very happy, right? Just the fresh money coming in hand and being financially independent is giving them happiness. We will know later what happens. But as teachers, where you are or where I am, the kind of students we work with, what we can do best is that help them figuring out what their interest is and let them at least pursue the most interesting thing. They feel that which is the most interesting profession as for them.
Yep.
We can do that.
And which has strengths.
Yeah.
Correct. And where they have strengths. And I think, again, as Sudeepta rightfully pointed out, like the financial aspect is not something to be downplayed. So it takes time to marry all these things, right? And this is what I'm saying. So I think in general, if there are roles, and we all know this, there are roles that are available in greater quantities, where the employer will be happy to bring a bus to your campus, hire 20 people, and everyone feels happier at the end of that day. No doubt about it, right? But over time, we need to prepare our young people to get to a place where they can start writing their own roles. Because when you start to write your own role, that's when you figure out how to marry the different angles. That's a problem-solving exercise in itself, and we need to prepare them for it, right? Versus tell them that you will get a pre-prepared meal and you can eat it. Like, how many days is a pre-prepared meal going to last you? Right? You can take it for one train journey in the olden days, right? You take it for 148-hour journey from, Kanyakumari to Delhi. And then what happens? After that, like especially if it's a 2.5-day journey, then for that last half a day, you have to buy something, right? Now, the point is that this journey is something we need to prepare them for so that they're ready at every step without the pre-prepared meals, right? So anyway, coming back to this one, so it says, how would you define mentorship? I actually think, look, there's actually a lot of literature on this. I'm not sure that, we are the right people to spend time discussing about mentorship and saying how we define it. I think the key point I would highlight is when you engage in a mentorship relationship with someone, please have a specific goal in mind, right? Just saying that I'm a mentor in a very fuzzy way, where it is not clear what success outcome looks like, invariably leads to failure. So I can tell you what mentorship is not. Mentorship is not something where you have a fuzzy goal. You do need clear goals. People who say I'm a mentor and then let's have a half-an-hour mentorship conversation, a 1-hour mentorship conversation, but it is a very general conversation. How are things at home? Is everyone happy? What did you read in the newspaper today? Gets you nowhere, right? So I think that's not mentorship, right? You need a specific problem. And because then the beauty of it is that will allow you to assess with intellectual humility, which we talked about, whether you are the right mentor for that person. Someone approached me recently and asked me to mentor them on a specific problem. And this happened like 2 days ago. And I listened to what their problem was. And I realized I was not the right person to support them with that. And I said, no, actually, I can recommend these 3 other people who I think would be better mentors for this. And if you like, I can connect you to them. Right? And I think that allows the mentorship to be very fruitful for both parties. Right? Cool. So let's just move forward. We discussed the next one.
Yes,
then
we have a question. What is the picture in other countries, education field about mentoring? Yeah,
so the picture is very mixed. Let's put it that way. Mentoring is one of those things which, like I said, it's truly very fuzzy. A lot of different relationships fall into this category of mentoring. And I'll be honest, the mechanism is not really working anywhere in the world. I'll just be blunt about it. It's not working anywhere in the world right now, right? I would say the overwhelming set of mentoring relationships end in failure. And what I mean by failure is it's going nowhere, right? They get together, they become friends, but is it really helping this person achieve a specific goal, right? And the thing about mentoring is it's invariably altruistic. Someone is mentoring you out of the goodness of their heart, right? This means two things. One, they don't have the vision for what you want out of this. And it is not reasonable to expect your mentor to have a vision for what you should do, right? The mentee has to have this understanding, not the mentor, right? So but most mentees struggle with that. And so when I sometimes start mentoring relationships, I tell the mentee, why don't we first spend time understanding what it is that you want to get good at? Let's have that as the first goal, right? Which is a goal for a goal, right? So you can do things like that, but honestly, all of this is really, mentoring is fundamentally about careers. It's not necessarily about education, not education. Like, I have seen assistant professors being mentored by associate professors being mentored by professors. All this happens, and that's part of the growth trajectory, right? Because when you're mentoring someone, you're telling them, I see you as someone who has the potential to go to the next level. I'd like to help you get there, right? But again, provided you're driven, you're getting somewhere. Recently, there's a concept called sponsorship that has been coming up. In fact, there's a pretty interesting book called, Forget About Mentorship, Think About Sponsorship. And I think that book made a lot of sense to me, mostly because it turns what is a very vague, understood term and turns it into something else, which is sponsorship, and makes it very specific, right? So we do mentoring relationships at RaiseToPi, but those are very specific. Our mentors come in, they're technical experts in a domain, the own turns, as we call them, who are working on a project, take a specific technical problem to this mentor. The mentor is able to resolve it in as little as 45, 60 minutes, and then they may be done. Right, that's the end of the mentoring right there. Right, now that keeps it fulfilling for the mentor because then they know they added value. It's exciting to the mentee because they know they just received some value. And as the mentee keeps making progress, the mentor's investment in this project is growing all the time, because then they keep hearing about all the wonderful work that this team did after they helped them with something. And that gives them that greater sense of fulfillment. So I know this wasn't a direct answer to your question, but I'm just trying to highlight that mentoring is too fuzzy. If I were you, I would be very specific about what you're doing with your mentee or your mentor. And I would also say be clear about who has to do the heavy lifting. Is it the mentee or is it the mentor? Just tell them upfront. Some bluntness is helpful, and I tie it back to my earlier thing, which is, at some point you're going to have to make the decision that the student has to drive. Right? We can't keep putting students in a position where we keep spoon feeding them, and then we say, okay, now you've come to the real world, now you'll be successful. How is that possible? It is not possible. I have experience. I experienced because I was, and I'm just a personal story, right? I was spoon-fed till I was in the 10th grade, which is kind of a horrible thing to happen, but that happened, right? Come 11th and 12th, those are critical moments. I didn't know what to do, right? Now, I was still in a place where I could recover. But now, what happens when you stop getting your spoon feeding at 21, 22? How many years is it going to take to get out of that mental model? In fact, I had a lot of people in business school who did complain that we didn't have a steady stream of employers coming in, right? And just hiring people by the busload and going away. But that doesn't prepare you. That's the reality. You have to learn how to forge connections in the world. You have to know how to tell your story. That's what will set you up. Sorry, I digressed a bit there.
I would like to add a little bit to this. Like when you talk about what is the mentorship happening in the education world globally. So as Chalam said, a mix of things. Some are working, some are not working. I see the career, like not career specific, like specific thing that the mentors are coming, giving a specific kind of knowledge, whether it is technical, whether it is financial, like even in RaiseToPi, we have mentors who come and give financial literacy knowledge, right? Because we have students who are entrepreneurs, like we have middle schoolers who are entrepreneurs. Now, there is no way middle schoolers would know what is like profit, what is revenue, what is loan, what is debt equity. So we had a mentor who came and spoke to them. So that kind of thing, topic specific mentoring is very, very common and it is working around the globe.
Yeah.
There is another thing which has come in last 6 to 7 years, little more than 5 years, is pathfinding mentorship, right? Now, what is this pathfinding mentorship? The reason why I know is that this is exactly what I also do, but I never called myself that I do pathfinding mentorship unless I read about it and I figured out that this is exactly what I do, is where you work with the young minds and get the negativity out first, make them ensure that they start, looking at the world with a fresh, positive perspective. Because and this is specifically I'm seeing in India. Actually, I was mentoring students with All Stars project in US and I've not seen this. The students had a lot of negative feeling because of situational thing, broken families or drug addict parents or something like that there in US. But what I'm seeing in India is unfortunately, it's the adults in the family who are creating a very negative mindset in the students. Okay, that everyone is out there to hurt you and to harm you and to compete with you and to let you down is something we are doing, and many, many of us are doing, and realizing how harmful it is for them. And it is creating insecure young adults, insecure next generation, so this pathfinding mentorship is something if teacher and your fraternity can start doing here, it would be amazing, because the negativity is just there in the student's mind. And from grade 1 or from the time they learn to talk, this is what they are listening. Oh, that uncle's son is doing so well, you are not doing, so you are useless. But we don't realize how much of negativity we are passing on. Now, I have seen it in family between cousins that one went to IIT and the other could not go to IIT, 1 year difference, and the perpetual rift between the cousins stayed because of the adults, right? So the pathfinding mentorship is nothing. First, get the negativity out, make them trust the world, make them understand that the world is not that bad. There are bad people, but not everyone is bad. That will create like a trust which is needed, and then they will start reaching out for help, they will start forging connections, they would do everything that they want. So that pathfinding mentorship is something that really resonated with me. At that time it wasn't called so. So yeah, that is happening. I can see a lot of international schools. I can see a lot of, I know that University of, like in Sydney, the university is doing that. I read the article written by them and their profs. So I definitely know they are doing that. And in that article, there were other universities mentioned in the world who have started doing something like this, right? So, brilliant. Yeah.
We have another question for you, ma'am. How to motivate without comparing?
I would love to
can we hold that thought for a second, because I think that will become a bit clearer as we get into the next part of that discussion. Definitely. That's a really, really good question.
Really good question. Yeah.
It's a question that is very close to our hearts. So sure, we'll talk more about that.
Sure.
And please keep us honest. If we miss, then we'll come back. And I have moved one of the things, so I'll stay for longer. But let's head to the next phase. So shall I head into my phase at this point?
Yeah,
my part of the presentation. Yeah. All right. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen here. Can everyone see this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, lovely. Great. Okay, wonderful. So I think we had a good start in the prior discussion. So So when folks talk to us about having a faculty interaction on the role of teachers, I'll just be very honest. So I'm not an educationist, right? And neither is Sudeepta, am I correct? As far as I know, right? So we're not exactly faculty per se. So we don't want to be in a position where we are giving you advice on what to do. I would rather have a discussion here today in terms of some of the ideas that we have from our experiences at the other end of that table as students, and as people who are also trying to solve certain issues, particularly when it comes to career transitions. What are we seeing in the industry? What are we seeing from the industry side of this? And what have we experienced from the academic side of this? And how can the two of those considerations be merged? Yeah. Cool. All right. So in that spirit of having a discussion, right? And I would appreciate it if folks, I believe that we're a small enough group. I think there are like 40 participants. It's not a very big group. So why don't you just unmute yourself as we have the discussion, and you can just share with us if that works for everyone. So just some discussion topics for us to get going on. Yeah. So the first question I have for you is, and this is not a question to discuss amongst everybody. First is a question that I want you to think and visualize in your own mind. No need to share it with the rest of us. Just want you to you've taught a lot of people. So think of those alumni, people who have already graduated. Who among them is successful? So you might have some names in your mind. Yeah, so I'll give you 10 seconds for this. Everyone's clear?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So everyone's got the picture in their mind, right? Alumni who are successful. Yeah? All right, moving forward. So when you visualize this person, what did success look like? Right? Again, this is a question to keep in your mind for now, right? What are the attributes of this person? In fact, Dr. Anil Kumar talked about some of your successful alumni, right? And he touched on some of the attributes, but I actually want you to also think about this from what did success look like among the alumni you're thinking of? And he was so right? He pointed out that career means so many things, right? And so there's so many different kinds of careers you can process, so many different types of successes. But when you think of successful alumni, what does success look like? Yeah, so can you just write down a few attributes, right? Just write down 3 words that describe success. Cool. So that's 10 seconds. And now why don't you just share it with us in the chat window? Tell us what you think of. What are the words that come to your mind when you think of the success of your alumni? Yeah, lovely. Yeah, so reading initiative, confidence, clarity, happy with their work, lovely. Yeah. Interestingly, how do you know whether they're happy with their work? I'm curious. Dr. Ambika, I mean, I don't know if you feel comfortable, please just unmute yourself, share with us. Love to know.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
I mean, students usually they share, sir. I mean, whether how they are at their work. Usually, when they are out of the campus,
yeah,
they will become more friendly with us.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what
yes.
I know. I mean, students
yes.
I mean, I have around a 14 to 15 years experience. So
Yes.
my students are more friendly when they go out of the campus.
Totally. Totally.
So it is, they usually share their
No,
work
that makes a lot
burden,
of sense.
what
That makes a lot of sense.
what they feel, and so many times I get this remark, ma'am, you were right at that time. We did not understand at that time, but now I know why you were telling like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Very
these,
normal. Totally agree.
I usually
Yeah,
come across.
totally makes sense. So the next one, it says job satisfaction, I think seems very tied to that. It's a very similar concept. Higher package than above the market. That's a very interesting one. You know, things like, you know, am I getting paid well? Yeah, totally. Better job commitment. Like how confident are they that they won't lose their job? Is that what it means?
Or maybe that they are really committed to their job.
Yes, yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, because in terms of what drives satisfaction from the student, right, or from the alumni, right, it is, I think it is some of those things, right? So yeah, so they're in a very stable job, they feel very secure, they're getting a good pay package. You know, it's so interesting, right? All of this is stuff that you're thinking about when you think of a successful alumnus. Okay, wonderful. So let's talk about the next one. This is an interesting one, right? So how many of them? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Shakila. So strong values, good decision making. Yeah, totally, totally. Now, if you kind of, I want you to rewind the clock a bit. I want you to now think of these alumni when they were in college with you. How many of them were you concerned about? How many of them were you thinking, God, I don't know what's going to happen to these people once they go out? So, and by which I mean, I think just simply I'm asking, is that some of those people you were concerned, many you were concerned, most, all? I doubt it's all, but you know, I'm curious to see, and you can just put it into the chat window. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. So isn't that fascinating? I mean, this is actually very aligned with my own experience. Yeah, totally. This is totally aligned with our own experience, right? Because when we're in college, we have this perception of who is going to do well. Because just like you were thinking about your students and saying which of these people are going to become problems after they leave college, right? Their peers were also making similar judgments, right? So just like when you were in college, you were looking at your peers and say, okay, this person is going to get into trouble, this person is going to do really well. You were making those judgments. And the same way I was as well. Everyone, it's natural, it's a human thing, we all do that. But what is truly fascinating is that many of them, in fact, all the people that I went to undergrad school with, they've all done well. Right? All the people that I thought, this person is going to get into trouble, didn't somehow, or they did for a while and they got out of it. You know, what it shows us is the extraordinary resilience of humans, right? We are really able to confront difficult situations and turn them around. Right? Now, I'm not saying this happens with everyone, but it is very interesting to note that a lot of the people that we thought would do super duper well did okay. A lot of the people that we thought would do okay did super duper well. Right? And if you think about it, and it's so interesting, like when we think of someone like Sundar Pichai, for example, you might think, oh, he's an IITian. So yeah, he was bound to do very well. I'll point out to you, Sundar Pichai went to IIT for metallurgy, by which I can logically conclude that his rank was not that high, right? So now imagine that you're a computer science, an IIT computer science student who went in the same batch as Sundar Pichai. All right. So now if you think back, that person had a higher rank, you would assume at that time, oh yeah, this person is going to do much better in life. The reality is you can't really tell. Like someone like Satya did not go to IIT. Now, I'm not saying Satya could not have gotten in. That's a different story, right? But what I'm trying to tell you is he didn't go, right? And I'm talking about two examples that are very well known, but there are lots of other such examples in our lives where we see that there are certain markers that we use as shortcuts, right? To identify who we think is going to do really well in life and who's not. And it's nice pastime, but more often than not, we're wrong, right? And something changes in this person's trajectory, and life takes its own course, right? So that's just something I want to highlight to you, right? So that's, so now this brings us to the important question. So what does success mean to the students you have today? What can you learn about how you thought about your alumni when they were students? And how do you now take that and apply it to the students that you have today? Right? And so this is the second part that I want to discuss. But first question in that is, what do you think success means to the students that you have today? To them, not to you. What does it mean to the students? Yeah, stress-free job. I've actually heard that several times. And I do find it astonishing, but yes. Anything else other than, yeah, totally high package? Able to make something out of any opportunity. Yeah, absolutely. There are a few very driven folks who may not be driven today, but somehow, as you pointed out so well, the moment they step out of the campus, suddenly the drive comes out of nowhere. And you were like, where was that when I was teaching you? Career growth. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think a lot of this is very career oriented, right? For the student, a lot of this is extremely career oriented. The sense of responsibility is certainly there with some of them for sure, right? I wouldn't say it's all pervading, but yes, certainly I've seen several students with that sense of responsibility. What is wonderful is that that sense of responsibility seems to be increasing, right? And I would say not only is the sense of responsibility increasing, seems like there's a confidence now I see in more and more that I can do something. And that goes to the next point that you mentioned as well, which is do something that you enjoy, that you're passionate about. It's so interesting. Like if you go back 10 years, 15 years, I don't think we were talking about this. It was like, go do work. What do you mean? What you're passionate about? What does it mean? What do you enjoy? You know, shut up. Are you getting a job? Go take the job, right? And now we are all talking about these things. And I think it comes from a new confidence in a lot of people that I can find something that I will be passionate about, that I can find something that I will enjoy. But I have to tell you that this is as hard today as it used to be before. Finding something that you're passionate about is not easy. Finding something that you enjoy is not easy. And it takes a lot of iteration. It takes a lot of experimentation, not just talking about it, not just saying, this person is enjoying it, so I will enjoy it. How is that possible? You don't know that, right? So you might enjoy a particular sweet, maybe I don't like it, right? So that whole journey of understanding what you want and what you value is something that, yeah, and someone rightfully pointed out, passion is often not supported by the family. That's fair. But you know, your family is not your enemy, right? They're not saying that I don't care about your passion. They're saying we have this other priority, which is maybe financial stability, right? Or maybe financial outcome, or it may be financial stability, but they really care about that. So if you can find a way to marry your passion with the outcomes that your family needs, then I think your family will be very happy for you. They're not going to stop you from doing your passion project, right? But they care that you get the right financial outcomes. And so this also takes experimentation. And the sooner you start that experimentation, the better. right? Networking, yeah, sure. But I think the networking is probably in preparation for the job. Thank you so much for this participation. I love this participation. It's coming along really well. Thank you. Great. So I'll move forward. What does success look like when you think about your students, right? So now this is your perspective, right? When you look at your students right now, and you can please try to answer as honestly as you can. How do you think of who is successful as a student and who is not successful as a student? Harder to answer? They're able to get to a better position in life. But you don't know that right now. That's not what they're getting evaluated on. They keep growing in their respective job. Most of your students, I presume, don't have a job right now, right? They're students, they're learning. Right? I mean, honestly, I think at this point, the only metrics that are available to you are how did this person do well in their exams? How did this person do in their exams? Is this person engaged and participating in class? Is this person engaged and participating in extracurriculars? And it looks like you have so many of these extracurricular activities in your school. That's amazing. I'm really quite amazed at that. And then are they taking up all of those kinds of opportunities? I encourage more of entrepreneurship. Yeah, absolutely. That would be lovely. So yes, if they're getting out there and getting involved in entrepreneurship, that would be brilliant, right? But traditionally, yeah, absolutely. So not wasting time, using their time constructively, right? But again, we have some very interesting definitions of what wasting time means, right? Now, again, that is changing with time. Yeah, but interestingly, we've seen a student presentation recently of undergraduates who suggested that watching Netflix was wasting time. Who suggests or talking to your friends is wasting time, or playing with your friends is wasting time. Now, the reality is that the human brain is actually very good at figuring out what is a time waste and what is not a time waste. And very often, the relationships that you build through that time wastage ends up paying off for you later in life. So it's very difficult to assess at the time what is in fact a time waste and what is not. So this is a very difficult one, but I completely agree that we are all constantly watching for it, right? Certainly with all of our kids, with ourselves, right? We're constantly watching. Like if we happen to watch, I'm sure that in your busy schedules, with all these webinars that you're part of and all these activities you're part of, if you happen to watch one episode of some show for 20 minutes, you probably feel guilty. Like, why did I do that? I have so much other work to do, right? And the point is, you don't know that, right? Sometimes you just get a lot of knowledge, cultural context about the world. How do you know how to communicate, right? Because language is changing all the time, right? The words that I used to describe certain experiences 20 years ago are very different from the words I use now. And so now, if you look at the next generation, it's constantly evolving, and the media keeps you plugged into that. So there's a lot of different things going on, and you can lose connections so you don't know actually which is time waste. That's the point I'm trying to make. Who are contributing to the economy, society's responsible citizen? Yeah, totally. Feels very happy when they climb the career ladder and they share often. Yeah, I can totally see that. If they prove, I totally agree. That is such a beautiful comment, that if they prove me wrong, that is an awesome comment. I think we can all agree on that, right? I think we get concerned that someone is not going to do well. But but we care about them. So when they don't do well, or sorry, if they do actually prove us wrong and they start to do very well, we are only happy, right? That's great. Positive behavior of students, totally. That makes sense too. So yes, clearly proving you wrong has to come later. But in the immediate term, when you look at students, you're really looking at these kinds of positive behaviors. right? And then, of course, you know which ones of your students you're concerned about. Okay, so that brings me to, I think the theme that has very clearly come out in all of your comments is really around careers, right? Because they're worried about their careers, you're worried about their careers. Everyone's trying to make sure, like, whether it is marks, whether it's giving them extracurricular opportunities, whatever it is, we are trying to put them in a spot where they can have career success. This forward movement of career is really what we're looking for, right? But let me ask you this. Have you had a chance to really think about with yourself, why do you care about the success of your students and alumni? What's in it for you? I know, given everything that I've heard about your institution, it sounds like you're all in this for the passion and fulfillment. That's really wonderful. Yes, I totally understand that. But is that also because a part of your identity, part of your own, so a sense of fulfillment, right? It's like, if they succeed, then I feel like I got something in it. See, that's a really good one. It improves admissions and brand is very tangible, right? Yeah, totally. I understand that. It makes you happy, makes you feel fulfilled, totally makes sense. I want to explore this other point that you mentioned here in terms of improving admissions and brand a little bit more. Yeah, maybe it's because I'm too American now. I don't know, maybe that's the issue. But the point is that I think there's, if we can be a bit clear to ourselves in terms of what do we get beyond the pride, fulfillment, satisfaction, happiness, all those things are wonderful, right? And we need them. That's what gets us out of bed every day, no doubt, right? But what's happening beyond that, right? That's right. So you're looking for career opportunities for the student, but what's in it for you personally, apart from fulfillment? Fulfillment is very important, by the way, right? I'm not discounting that. But is there something more here? And I'm not asking this rhetorically, because the answer to it is yes, there is a lot more here, right? And there's a lot in it for every one of us personally, right? And that's the point I want to highlight. So if you think of this, so as you point out, improves admission and brand, right? Now, what does that do for you? Improving admission and brand. That's the institute, right? The institute sees improved admission and brand. What's in it for you personally? Why should you care if it improves admission and brand? Okay, let me put it to you differently. Maybe you're used to thinking in terms of the fulfillment, and maybe it's, you're thinking about it from that perspective. Let me flip it for you. Suppose somehow you have a teacher who's feeling a little unhappy with their career, work, for whatever reason. Yeah, so your survival depends on admission. You're ourselves a brand for output of successful students. That's something to explore, right? Your personal brand, your personal reputation, right? Now, obviously, this happens, right? Certainly I know that this is true in academia because, I spent a fair bit of time with it, right? Yes, absolutely. What happens is, as the reputation of your institution grows, your personal reputation also grows. We've all seen that, right? Obviously when someone says, yeah, I'm a professor at so-and-so institution, right? Then there's this immediate tug of war, I am a professor at Harvard. Oh, okay, I'm a professor at Wharton, but Wharton is a superior school to Harvard. Then you have these kinds of discussions. But the point is, people often have that thing about the brand. And as the brand of the institution improves, their personal brand improves, right? And as their personal brand improves also, then maybe there's opportunity for improved pay and career opportunities for yourself, right? Maybe it helps you climb the academic ladder faster, right? As the institution, because again, you're say, oh yeah, I want to get this so-and-so professor or associate professor, assistant professor from SSVRM because they're awesome. And, that's a really good reputed school. We need them for our institution as we're building it out, right? I don't deny any of that stuff. You're absolutely correct. I see a lot of people talking about how important satisfaction is, how important it is to see the success of your students. But I really want you to also think what else is in it, because there's a lot else in it. Right? So I touched on a couple of things. I talked about your personal, the reputation of the institution tied to you, your personal reputation. I talked about the reputation of the institution leading to better career opportunities for you. What else does that do? What else does the reputation of the organization do for you? Yes, no doubt. I'm not quite sure I understood what secured means. Does that mean did you mean like your own job security? Is that what you meant? Yeah, sure. Fair enough. Yeah. As the reputation grows, more people want to come in. So yes, the college is doing well, so you can do more. Yeah, sure. Certainly. I see how it could motivate you to do more, commit more. Recognition, there's personal recognition. I also want you to recognize other aspects of this. As the reputation of your institution grows, you will get better industry connections. That is bound to happen. Because again, people hiring managers and sitting in industry don't have the time to build relationships with every institution in the country. That's just not realistic, right? If on the other hand, you have a really good reputation, then you've got the attention of these hiring managers, and then you have an improved industry connections and the ability, and you start to have an improved ability to connect your students with the industry professionals, right? Because now these are your personal relationships. I'm not talking about the institution. Institutions are abstract entities. Institutions, organizations are all abstract entities. In the end, my finding is in general in life is things have to work at a personal level. When things work at the personal level, they work at the organizational level. It's as simple as that. So if you're not answering to yourself why things are or are not working for you personally, then you have not finished answering important questions. Yeah, so that's why I'm helping you connect these important dots. So you have to get the industry connections right. The industry connections will help you connect your students with the professionals. And that will then result in alumni and the alumni relationships. Yes, of course, your students will come back, maybe because you're a great teacher, they'll come back and keep in touch with you. But it's really something else when they know that they learned of job opportunities, when they learned about career opportunities through you, through doors that you opened for them personally. That's a very different relationship. I have that relationship with a few people, and believe me, it's a very different relationship. I also have a lot of hi-hello relationships with other people. They are very different. The seriousness with which I take one relationship versus another, worlds apart from each other. Right? We have to prioritize, and this is how we prioritize as human beings. So building those strong industry connections will help you personally, will help you connect your students to opportunities, and then that in turn will help you build even more industry connections. That's the virtuous cycle over there, right? Similarly, if you can also help your fellow faculty members. So imagine now that you're leveraging your industry connections for your students. Now, what does that do to your standing among students? Today, if you have to push your students to do things, today, if you have to push them to come to your class, if you have to push them to listen to what you have to say, all that goes away. Now they're much keener because Because let's face it, that your social standing among your students is different, right? Yes, rank will come into play, but social standing among students is a must-have for every teacher. So when your students know that you can open doors and opportunities for them, they will behave with you very differently, right? Similarly, the same thing can be applied to fellow faculty. Can you open doors for them? Now imagine what kind of collaborative atmosphere you then start to build out. And imagine what that does for you on a day-to-day basis, as how energized do you feel about coming to work, about meeting your peers, about meeting your students. Because now everyone is in that happy place, right? Remember what I said about what happens when when things are going badly for a team? There are all problems, and the problems are always caused by somebody else. And when you're a teacher, you are going to be the first target, right? You all know this. It becomes like that, right? It's very tempting for students to say, oh, I didn't do this because my teacher was not good. That may not be true at all, but it's very easy. These are simple, it's a shortcut for many people. Not all students do this, by the way, of course, I recognize that, but it's very tempting, right? But what happens when things are going well? When things are really going well and everyone is getting the right exposure, you're able to bring in alumni, people are able to talk to each other, you're able to bring in other industry professionals. Now you have the opportunity to set up interesting mentoring discussions. So now you get a nice virtual cycle out of it, right? So this is something that is an idea and that I have seen in action in top business schools. And I think this is something you can easily take and run with, but it is something this is something for you to connect with personally. And again, I will highlight, these may not really work for you. What I've said may or may not have resonated with you. Maybe fulfillment is your only thing and that drives you. And that is much more important to you than anything else. That's wonderful. Please do that. It's just that in my experience, a good number of us need more than that. And I think if we can be honest with ourselves about it sometimes, then it can help you create an even healthier relationship with your organization, right? So this is just something to keep in mind. And what does it mean for success, right? So that's something I want to tie back to over there. Cool. I'll move through the rest of this much faster because I think we've covered the core issues here. It's kind of, if I go back and ask, okay, we are clear that career success is what we want to deliver for our students. What's the first step they need? And I think the key message that came from yesterday's talk, and that's what Sudeepta also reiterated earlier today, is get real world experience that you can talk about. If there is zero value in telling me as a hiring manager that you worked for 3 months with Google. Now, of course, I will take it seriously because I know the culture at Google. So I know that if you spend 3 months at Google, you are not wasting your time. So just tell me what you did, then we'll get into that conversation. But there are other places where you, or even at Google, maybe for some reason you happen to intern, you didn't really do anything there. Now, then you don't have a story to share. So really what I want to hear is, as a hiring manager, what was the problem that you identified? How did you solve it? Or how did you create a proposal to solve it? What action did you take? What results did you get? How did you think about what happened? Did you encounter failure? How did you encounter failure? How did you react to failure? How did you react to your peers? How did you work with your peers? Those are the things that I want to hear from you. Right? And that's real world experience. So the sooner they get real world experience they can talk about, that is what profile really means in the end. Right? All the other stuff can get you through the door for an interview, but after that, you still have this thing. And interviews are not going away at all. I can promise you that. And this is the core idea that we talked about. Be ready to share what you did, what you learned, and how it is relevant to this employer that you're talking to right now. This is probably something your interview cell is already working with your students on, especially that last bit. But as Sudeepta pointed out, unless you have a really meaningful experience, you can keep making a mountain out of a molehill. But most interviewers who are listening know whether you've taken on something really important or you've taken on something small and you're making it out to be this Nobel Prize winning project, right? Which, whatever, it's very hard to fool the interviewer, right? Because, and by the way, there are also students who are part of teams that did really good work and they simply report out the project, right? And believe me, these are super easy to detect for an interviewer, super duper easy to detect, because all I need is one follow-up question or two follow-up questions, and this person's already started stumbling, right? And the knowledge of details is what convinces me that that project was yours, you did it, you gave it your heart and soul, you made it happen. And that knowledge of details is what will stand you in good stead in your career as well.
I would actually like to add an example here. Like most recently, when I was looking for the previous organization which I worked with, and I'm still on their board, I was looking for someone to fill up a position of key accounts manager. And I had shortlisted 2 CVs. And out of that one, when I spoke to, I did not even reach out for a second call. And the person kept following up with me. And the reason was that the CV, the resume, was very, very interesting. All the right things were written in the right way. But when I spoke to that person for 45 minutes or so, I figured out everything written in that resume. He doesn't have substantial evidence. And when I say evidence, he didn't have the right story, right experience, right? 3 questions of that person, and it's a key accounts manager role. So like, just about tell me what is your most challenging? He said he is working for a startup and he has handled clients, and handling clients for a tech startup that he was working for was a very difficult job. Like tech clients are not easy. They are parent handling. And I said, okay, so tell me the story. Tell me a couple of most challenging clients, story of that you have handled. And he fumbled. Then I said, okay, this story is not adding up, because as a parent, and today's parents of young children are very, very aware, they would ask more questions, and I'm aware of what those questions would be. Whereas the other person came from a not-for-profit background, not that hi-fi, not from a great college. But when he told me that he has handled donors for like a project in Assam, and not many corporates want to invest in Assam. Assam is Northeast is not in the radar of corporates. So I asked him that what was very difficult to retain those donors. What is the most challenging thing you faced while you wanted to retain those, donors? And his stories about the conversations with the donors totally made sense to me. I know that corporates can ask such kind of questions, which are not really, because they won't understand the ground reality, and they will ask unreasonable questions, right? And that story added up, and I ended up hiring that person, and he's doing wonderfully well in that role. I can. So these are few examples, and I'm sure Chalam also has many such examples. Manager, right? Absolutely. Where you can write all the right things in your resume, but you don't have the experience. The moment the interview is done, they will fumble. They won't be able to make it. Absolutely. As profs, as their teachers, you will have to guide them to have the right story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so this is the point. So you got to encourage them. So now in terms of what faculty could do, and again, these are ideas for thought, right? And these are something to think about. I mean, again, I want to highlight, we are not educationists, so we don't really want to get into the position of telling you how to do things, because I think you would know that better than we would. But sitting from the outside, we can provide a couple of suggestions, and please take it in that spirit. So the first one I would say is around encouraging students to get real world experience. This is really, and now this is easy to say, but how do you actually do this on a day-to-day basis, right? How do you provide encouragement? So a couple of thoughts here. First, can you invite those doing projects or jobs to share their lessons learned and stories in your class? So if you're teaching a certain subject, right, are there students who have encountered challenges related to that, even if they don't have the answer, even if they have seen the challenges? That kind of participation would encourage instantly, right? Because now you're validating that this person is doing something real, right? So this will give students first practice in presenting their stories, right? Because now they're presenting it with a safer audience, you, their peers, right? It will give students confidence that what they're doing matters. Why? Because someone as influential in their lives at the moment, who's the teacher, is saying that this is important, then it must be, right? And so that validation that they're getting, that will give them that confidence, that extra boost of confidence, which is so essential. And this would serve as an example to others in your class, right? Because now when you say, because that's what happens, right? When you tell people, great job, that person feels good, but what happens to the 10 other people who are sitting there watching? They're thinking, hey, I want to be recognized too, right? And at that point, they're thinking about how do I have relevant experiences that I can come and share and showcase, right? So this can be a good mechanism for you to encourage your students, right? Having some of them, and by the way, this happens very commonly in business schools, right? Because in business schools, usually people have had some experience in the past, and it is, well, not always, but increasingly there's a trend where there's a mixture of people in the class who have experience and people who don't. And at least you can call on the people who have experience to come and share their stories, right? Certainly in other countries, the norm is to have people in the class who have experience. It's very rare that you have someone in the class who doesn't have any work experience or professional experience. So in these kinds of cases, every time you learn as much from your peers as you learn from the teachers, right? And from their experiences when they're talking from a position of authority, right? Because they've seen it, they have experienced it, right? And it's very, and that is one thing that I do think is different, where I've been in lectures, both in engineering as well as in business school, where professors have called on certain members in the class and said, hey, you're working in this area. Am I saying this right? You know, or has the art changed? Are there updates that we should be thinking about, right? So in a way, there is an inclusion that, hey, you have something important and valid to add. And that kind of validation can go a long way in kind of encouraging. Moving on, the other piece of is inviting managers and mentors of working students, right? So let's say that someone is working as a salesperson. Now, maybe this person is not ready to come and talk about sales to your class, but this person may be able to get their manager to come and talk to your class, or the supervisor to come and talk to your class, right? Now, this also has a lot of benefits. It will give your students the opportunity to hear language and perspective. So this is both very important, because, you know, I completely recognize right now, for example, that I'm not speaking in the language that you may be used to. So it is possible that my words are not completely resonating with you. Now, on the other hand, I think there are going to be people who recognize, oh, this is the language I have to speak to for this audience. And so I have to present it in that way, and that will resonate. And I think this is also true at the time of interviews. If you speak in a language that the hiring manager doesn't understand, doesn't appreciate, then it is unlikely that you will make it. So and when I say language, I don't just mean English or Kannada or Hindi or whatever, right? I mean the subset. Are you using the right words, right? And you have fluency with it. So this is kind of where we have to go there. So being able to hear the professional speak is value to your students. As the professionals come, they feel invested in your company, and that will build the brand affinity between them and your organization and sorry, your college, right? That's another thing that happens, and that has benefits from a placement perspective, obviously, right? Because then they are taking you seriously, and it will also encourage other students to seek similar opportunities, right? Because then you get this whole virtuous cycle going. Everybody wants to do well, so everybody wants to show that they can also do something. So, and that this kind of virtuous cycle building will give you very real encouragement to go get real experience, to go talk about real world experience. I'll pause here to see if there are any questions on this.
We don't have any questions in the chat box, sir. Anybody has a question? Yeah. You can unmute yourself.
Or you can just keep putting it in. I'll move forward. You can put it in when you're ready. So once you've encouraged people to do this, to kind of go get real world experience, it is important that you have an open discussion about how to actually get it, right? Now this, because it's easy enough to say, go get it, but what does that mean? The first thing we really need here is to acknowledge that there is no formula here, right? It is very easy to fall into the trap of waiting for that formula, waiting for full clarity and for all the pieces to fall into place. We are all, if you look at your own experiences in life, I'm pretty sure you will find that you are also figuring things out as you go along. You're probably taking the help of your friends, but you know, we're all, that's part of the human condition, right? We have no choice. None of us has all the answers. Ask any parent. So the point is then it takes a lot of critical thinking and importantly, humility to see what is our real situation and how are we going to deal with it. And the third is really important, which is that set aside all this higher calling, lower calling stuff. That really doesn't matter. There's too much looking down happening on sales roles. The reality is that sales roles set you up for a lot of success. That's simple fact. It really doesn't matter what you're learning. You might not enjoy that experience in that time. And I think that's what makes it so challenging for people. But the reality is it gives you some really critical skills that become very important to you later in life. So I think this kind of open discussion is important. And unless those open discussions are had with some level of openness to being wrong from your side, right? And willingness to say from your side that, boss, I don't have all the answers either, it will become very difficult. Yeah, let me come back to you in a second. Right, and the second piece of it is, it might be worth thinking about who are the alumni you were concerned about who are now doing well. What if you asked them to come around and share their turnaround story? You would not have been completely wrong, right? The people you were concerned about, you would have had very good reasons to be concerned about them. And the reality is they would have gone out into the real world and taken a few beatings. And then somehow things got corrected. It is useful for your students to understand how that course correction happened, because that helps them understand the importance of not being put into that situation, but also understanding that it is not necessarily hopeless, that you can dig yourself out of it. Yeah. And then the third one I want to talk about is setting a high performance bar. This one, so what I mean by this is, if you basically don't set a high standard, then that's the easiest recipe to make sure you don't achieve it. You must set a high performance bar for your students, right? So what if you told them upfront that you expect every one of them to get real world experience they can talk about? Why should this only be for a few people in your class? It should be for literally everyone, right? So you can tell them, I expect you to go get this, right? And there are lots of opportunities. As Sudeepta pointed out, a part-time job is one example, right? A good quality internship. Now, this is why I keep coming back to real world experience they can talk about. Unfortunately, too many internships are really about checking a box. The stories are lacking depth. We really need to understand, and that's why I laid out earlier what we need to see. Did you identify the problem? You went after it. You did something substantial. You got the opportunity to test it. You came back. That kind of thing is not easy to get in an internship. Very, very few people will get it, right? So if you can get such a high quality on internship, you're in good shape. Or start, someone pointed out, doing an entrepreneurship exercise. That is also a really good idea, right? That's another really good way to get real world experience. Or you can do a RaiseToPi internship with us as well. Now with us, it works differently. I think we definitely deliver a real world experience. But this is one where they take up a project that they identify, and we help them figure out how to marry what they're interested in with what is valued in the world, with what skills they have to deliver this, what strengths they have to deliver this, right? So this, like we said, takes experimentation, and that experimentation cycle is something we guide them on. That's part of the internship, and it's called an internship because it is directed by them with our help, and any intellectual property or outcomes, financial outcomes they get from that exercise is theirs.
So we have a question.
Yeah.
Can we take the questions now? Is it okay, or shall we take
I'm almost done. Is it all right if I just wrap up this slide and then come back for questions?
Not a problem.
Yeah. There's one other critical thing here, and this is something we talked about at the start, which is, I know that your placement cell is doing a great job. You just talked about, I was there in the early part of the discussion yesterday, and even today we talked about your 96% placement rate. I think it's really phenomenal that you're able to do that. But in addition to that, what if you told your students that they need to also take charge and not wait for the placement cell to deliver for them, right? This has its own benefits. They need to be able to take charge of finding work they like, right? Because as a placement cell, you can't read their minds. You can't go and source. If I don't know the strength of every outgoing batch, but if you have, let's say 100 people in an outgoing batch, I know you'll have much more than that. But what I'm saying is, let's just say you have 100 people in an outgoing batch. You can't go and create 100 different opportunities, ideal opportunities for all of them. This is something they have to figure out, right? So they have to take charge of finding work that they like. They have to take charge of creating those opportunities. Not all of those will just be available, right? But people are willing to listen when you have a narrative and you're talking about setting the direction. The other piece of taking charge of networking with industry experts. But what does networking mean? Today, networking doesn't mean exchanging names in business cards and telling people about yourself. You have to tell the story. Otherwise, I won't, by the time we have finished the conversation, I've forgotten your name, right? And I'm asking myself, why did I waste 5 minutes of my life with this person, right? That's because simply because hiring managers have so many people coming at them with pitches, right? It becomes very difficult. And it's not because hiring managers don't have enough positions. We have a lot of positions, but we are looking for the right people. And that's where the difficulties arise, right? So if you can show yourself to be the right person by networking with them about your project, about your real world experience, that becomes very powerful. You need to take charge of telling your story, right? So it has to be molded by them. So again, RaiseToPi interns do all of these things with our support, right? And it can definitely be done without our support. Don't get us wrong, right? It can definitely be done. It might what is being done as part of the program might take a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years to do outside of it, simply because it takes time to get the right mentorship, right guidance, and support as you go along, right? And that's the part we're trying to short circuit, or we're trying to make it easier. Yeah. So those are the really key points I really want to talk about, right? Which is, please encourage, if you ask me, what is it that your faculty could do differently? And again, maybe you're already doing these things, so please don't take it as me saying you're not doing it. I think certainly you should encourage your students to get real-world experience that they can talk about. As you have that discussion, please have it openly, and let them drive, but do set a high performance bar, right? You should agree on just one thing that you think they should do by themselves. Have them drive something, right, as part of this journey, versus saying that I'm going to wait for my placement cell to bring so-and-so company and then I'll get on board. Yeah. So that's really all I had to say. Thank you. Yeah, happy to take questions.
Thank you, sir. There's a question here. With the new education policy in place, students will soon have opportunities to pick up 2 different fields of science. So how do we as teachers help them to embrace the future opportunities created then?
And I think it really comes back to this, isn't it? Because, okay, I mean, this is relatively newer in India, right? Relatively newer. It's existed for a very long time in countries like the UK and the US, right? It hasn't stopped this question from coming up, right? As in, even in those countries. The simple reality is, when students are making choices, it's not as if they have a crystal ball either, right? So let's just, this is like exactly a detergent problem. I have 20 brands of detergent on the shelf. Previously, I was allowed to pick one. Now you're telling me I have enough money for 2. It hasn't solved my problem. Unless you can tell me that there are 20 brands of detergent on the board or on the shelf and I can buy all 20, right? Then fine, maybe the problem is solved, maybe, right? But until that chip is there, which will now suddenly magically take all the knowledge in the world and go into your head instantly, you're still making choices. And the reality is that you don't know which of these choices is going to work out, right? So when I did my undergraduate, I'll just take that example. I did my undergraduate in electronics and telecommunications. By the time I was done, I was very focused on AI, and I hardly did any work in electronics or in telecommunication. When I got to graduate school, I worked more with the Department of Psychology than I did with electrical engineering, simply because psychology was doing an emerging field called cognitive science at the time, right? So, and that's very interdisciplinary. And that's a field that is now combining linguistics with mathematics, and I mean pure mathematics, with computer science, with electronics. So it's architecture, like it's really coming together in a very different way. How could you possibly know? My point is, if I were you, I would be wary of taking on even more at your end to design this perfect life for this person, right? How could you know what future opportunities are going to be available to them? They have to run this. It's not even a race. It's not a marathon. It's nothing. They have to go on this journey, right? I think what you could do quite simply is allow them to explore, encourage them to take opportunities to explore, experiment ceaselessly, experiment in the real world where iteration is rewarded. Those things will get you to very interesting places they never thought they would get to. Honestly, and that kind of collaboration, when it happens, it looks beautiful. I'm not sure just allowing them to take 2 sciences is going to solve this problem, just personally, right? Because I think I've seen people who graduated in computational biology and economics. Okay. And then they've come out of it and now are doing computer science. As in they're coding, they're developers. I go, okay, great. I mean, yes, you're leveraging some of the stuff you did in computational biology, but not directly, right? You're taking it off in an interesting direction. But my point is that it's just impossible for any one of us. Let me ask you this. Can you project 10 years from now what you will be doing? Forget about your students. If you don't know what you will be doing 10 years from now, what makes you think you can design the beautiful careers of hundreds of your students? Is that even realistic? And why would you make a commitment like that to anyone?
See, I think more and more this is being said, and this is true, that the jobs which exist today will not exist 20 years from now. We have seen it like 20 years ago, there were lots of jobs that existed. Yesterday in my talk, I gave the example of typists and how from, the entire typist community who used to be well paid changed into people who could adapt and learn, immediately became computer operators, but people who couldn't, they were lost. Nobody knows what happened to them. Right?
Well, they did data entry for a while.
Data entry somewhere, or some of them never learned computer and they were not adapted enough. There was a resistance to computer when computers came in. Right? Anything new that comes in, there is a resistance, but it will happen. In fact, these for group discussions in MBA institutes, one of the most common topic that is coming is that like AI is going to take away most of the job. So as a manager, what would you do? Okay, and this is a group discussion topic in institutes. Now coming to, let's take IITians, like we all keep talking about IITians, and I know quite a few of them and married to one. He also is a metallurgy graduate, like who has never worked anything. He perhaps doesn't even know how many kind of metals exist in this planet anymore, right? Like, so all of these people who are doing something in IIT, metallurgy, aeronautics, what not, are literally not working in that field. Most of them are today either developers, computer science folks, or people managers, or things like this, right? They are not really doing things related to what they studied in school. But one of the things that they got prepared really well was they knew how to handle situations, challenges that come in front of them, right? And that is what is helping them. Knowing how to take ownership, knowing how to handle stuff, and the confidence that we can handle. Okay, that is what is the best gift as teachers you can give them. Build their confidence up, and then they would be ready with future. And make sure they don't become rigid. This is a big ownership on teachers and parents to make sure that students are open-minded and flexible and not becoming rigid. Because if they do become rigid, then it is very hard for them to grow or adapt.
And this all ties back again to real-world experience.
Real-world experience,
right? Because end of the day, that's really why we ended up zeroing on that at RaiseToPi, because it really felt like once you're in the real world, all the nonsense biases you had earlier all get beaten out of you, right? Simply because no one's interested in them. Your customers don't care. So you have to deliver. And when you have to deliver, then your assumptions and biases are only going to be hurdles in your path.
I think we can give an example of our BCom group here. Like they came up with this great idea when they were working with us. They thought it's very easy. Parents are going to listen to them, that they will create a project on digital detox for toddlers, which is true. Which, because of the pandemic in the last 1 year, parents who are working and managing household and everything are giving iPad and tablets to the like 3 to 5 year old, 6 year old. But it isn't easy. Why will those parents listen to these people? They are a bunch of become final year students, okay, who are working on a passion project. They think, so what did they do? First time when they tried to survey even just survey, right? They failed miserably. People did not even do their survey. They learned what failure is. They thought it is very easy. All the building people will take the survey just because they know them. No, they didn't. They didn't take them seriously. What did they do next? They got actually an ophthalmologist to speak to the parents and created a webinar for the building parents who like had this age group of children or older children. And they made that ophthalmologist speak and highlight what happens when these students like are actually on laptop or on iPad all the time, especially till the age of 12, how it is really bad for them. So now when classes are happening online, can you make sure that they don't have the tablets after that? That is when the parents took them seriously. And then the activities they were designing, then they went ahead and designed activities and gave it to the parents. And the parents started doing those activities, which were, that is again, when I told them as a parent that if you give me something very complicated, as a working parent, I'm not going to go and implement that activity because I have job commitments which I have to deliver. So what if I'm the founder? I still have commitments. They did not take that. I said, okay, go and survey parents. What kind of activities can you do? And then they understood that they cannot design complicated activities which takes like a lot of bandwidth from the parents. Parents don't have that bandwidth right now. Pandemic isn't helping. So then they designed simple things that the child could sit and do themselves, like with just some crayon things, and parents can just monitor. And started working with all four of them lived in different societies. So started working with the parents of the societies. Now, again, that is nothing to do with BCom, the course they were actually pursuing. But yesterday also I highlighted to the question of one of the students that when they went for interview, all of them, like one is placed in EY, the other in Deloitte, we coached them that when people ask you, tell me something about yourself, you don't rant out that this is my father, that's my mom, and this is what they do, and that is what they do. That is not what I am looking for when I ask someone, or I'm sure Chalam is looking for when he asks someone, tell me something about yourself. We all ask in the interview. What we are looking for is these kind of stories. It was hard to convince them because they're so conditioned to telling my dad, my mom, my brother, my sister as an answer to this question. But then finally, when they listened to us, we said, do it in one interview and see the result of this story on the interviewer. And when all of them tried, that is what happened. They could engage the interviewer. The interviewer's questions immediately changed. He wanted to know more about the project, what kind of challenges they faced. One of them told me, the interviewer even laughed that, what were you thinking that parents will listen to you? So they said, that is what we thought, but we learned. And then we got an expert to talk to the parents. Right? This was a real world learning that actually helped them connect with the interviewer. And at the end of it, the interviewer understood or whatever. That is what I assumed what would have happened is that these 4 kids, because I will call them kids only, anyway, they have become final year, that they can take ownership. They did not give up on the project.
Yes.
They failed, but they picked up and they completed. They did course correction, exactly what Chalam was talking about, that iteration. And that's what corporates want in their employees. If the employee gets demotivated, I have handled such employees. I'm sure Chalam, as you all would have, maybe some assistant that getting demotivated with every single failure. So what do I do? Keep babysitting the employee all the time. I would not have that much time to keep babysitting adults. So if the employee is coming to me who knows that, okay, when I fail, after that I can pick up and I learn from the failure, do a course correction, iterate the way I work and go back to the drawing board and then again start. That's a very good, that's something most of the interviewers do look for in their candidates, right? And ownership is one thing that I took charge, finished it, not left things in between just because there was failure or lost interest or anything. So these are few. I gave this example because you are teaching undergrad. So undergrad examples are the best for you, but we have middle schoolers, we have high schoolers who are working on projects like that, failing, picking up and again working, right? So, but this is most relevant for undergrads because they are going to hit the job market. Like they have to work. The work is like closest to them. So that's very important that they get these skills now. The other schools and school students and high school students, they still have time to get there.
That's a very valuable input, ma'am. We have another question from a teacher. Now, we all are aware, like I'm just adding more to it, to the question. Like we all are aware that our teachers are already having a huge task of the syllabus completion on mind, as well as various other things associated, not just teaching. Because as teacher, even I can acknowledge the fact that we have a lot of things to do apart from teaching. Now, how as a teacher we teach students every day in class about to connect to the real world or to the subject that we are teaching to what it is in the job or life outside? How do we connect?
Can you just make it really simple? Put it on them.
Yes, as
make
a
them
teacher,
connect it.
Yeah, as a teacher.
No, I'm actually answering your question.
Okay.
I'm saying make them connect. In the sense that you can give it to them as a project. You can give them a small assignment, right? You can say, I'm teaching this. Now I'm giving you an assignment. Tell me, show me, go get me a real world example where it's applied. I'm just taking a very simple example.
Yeah, ask them to research.
Yes. Right. You don't have the time. I mean, this is something not just in your case, right? I've actually found this across the board when I'm working with many people. I think there is if I look at the different cultures, so I've managed teams in India, in Japan, in China, in the UK, in France, and in the US. And the big difference I've noticed is in how people make commitments, right? I think, for example, my German colleagues were very, very, very good, right? They would say, I can do this. And if you can say, and if you went back and said, but can you do this much more? The answer will be no. It'll just be a blunt no, right? But you know that if they've told you that it will be done by 3 p.m. of a particular day, it will be done by 3 p.m. of a particular day, right? And it's a very different style of working, but it may not be everything you wanted, right? Now, when it comes to folks, whether it is, China, Japan, India, there is a common trend, which is a difficulty in saying no or in drawing boundaries. Now, it's important to be able to draw boundaries well, politely, nicely, in a constructive way, not rudely, like I'm not going to do it, right? But rather in a, hey, these are the constraints I'm operating under. This is what I can manage. This is where it becomes difficult, right? And can I help you with someone else? Can I maybe suggest someone else that you could work with to get it done? Things like that can get you the same outcomes, right? But the point is that it's very important that you not overcommit as teachers. Really, really important. Because it's remember, you also have your own families. You have to spend time with them. You have so much going on here, but it's also important to spend time with them. And I think, and honestly, what I have noticed is if you can tell yourself, I have 10 hours, 11 hours, whatever it is, whatever is the number that you think is right. For me, it's 10 hours. For others, it might be something else. I have 10 hours today. Everything I want to make happen today has to get done in these 10 hours. If you tell yourself that, your brain will start operating very differently. When you tell your brain that I have infinite time and I can handle everything, then everything gets challenging, right? And nothing will quite get done in the right level of quality. So I'm kind of coming back to this one. You cannot take that extra thing on. You have to put it back onto them. You're already doing a lot.
And it will be helpful for them. You're actually helping them by putting it on them.
You are actually helping them. That's my point. This is why I made that comment earlier. Please have your students do heavy lifting. It will really pay off for them in the long run.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I want to go back to one question which Vinay asked in the beginning of the
session. Yes, of course. Thank you.
Right?
Good call.
Yeah, that how do you motivate without comparing? How do you encourage without comparing? Right. So, yeah, we will come back to that question, which has come now. What one thing has worked, there are different styles that work for different people, but as a parent of a teenagers, and like mentoring youth, what has worked for me, and I have been doing it before I became a parent, is that don't directly use a name and use a real world person whom they know or are very connected to that this is see, that person is doing this, why can't you do that? It's a demotivator, right? It, like, if you have studied a little bit of psychology, the student is only getting negative feeling towards the other person and towards the parent or the teacher, that whatever I do, I am not valued, the other person is valued. My parents realized it way too late in life that what they have done. I wish they realized early. And it was always that comparison. Look at that girl, look at her. Okay, today I can say, and I'm again nothing against grades, but today my dad, when 3 years back, he told me that I always compared you with the first girl of your class, but she's doing nothing sitting at home, but you are doing a lot. I was like, thanks. That really closes a loop for me, but this is not helpful at this point of my life when I am in 40s. This would have been helpful when I was a teenager. So what I practice and what I've seen works really well is, people are also doing this, and this really works. Again, storytelling. I'm telling, we keep saying that, and this is storytelling. There are people who are teaching corporates how to tell stories, teaching parents how to tell stories, teaching teachers how to tell stories. We are telling you there's nothing major to learn. It's just changing the way you communicate. You just say, oh, this person, and there is an example. This person did. If you want, you can reach out to this person and take some guidance. You are actually motivating only, but that is really motivating. You are opening up a path for that person, that there is someone else who is doing this. Why don't you also explore? It is working, and it could be done that way. If you are interested, try to reach out and maybe give a nudge a couple of times. That did you think about it? Did you reach out? That kind of a thing, right? So that worked. So hope I could answer your question, Vinay. This is my experience purely. Chalam, if you have anything to add, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, again, motivation theory is very deep, right? There's just so much going on in terms of motivation. I think if you look at the earliest, most fundamental theories around motivation, they're around rewards and incentives, right? So you can always say, hey, accomplish X, and there's a reward or incentive waiting for you once you've accomplished it. And that's always a reasonable place to start, but that's obviously not a place where you finish, right? I think at the end, what you really are desirous of is a place where they're pulling, right? When they're pulling, because again, it's very different, right? When they are pulling, then they're going to be like, who's doing this well? In fact, rather than tell them who is doing it well, why don't you ask them that question? Why don't you ask them, like, you seem to be having challenges with this. Who's doing well? I don't know. Maybe you know, right? And this is where I'm coming from. In a way, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you give people everything, then there is no engagement, right? Like we could have had this exact same discussion with us just going through 20 slides. And I'm pretty confident that everyone here would be asleep, right? The reality is that to the extent that people are still awake, it's probably because there's been some exchange, right? Now, I think this exchange requires people to put in effort. Again, sorry, it comes back to the same point I was making. I don't know, it looks like I'm repeating myself endlessly today, but please make them put in the effort. That will motivate them. Ironically, put challenges in their path. Challenges will motivate, right? And then if you can and then of course you'll have to make sure that the challenges are something that they can scale, right? But this is my point. Motivation theory is actually very deep. There's a lot of literature on motivation theory, tremendous amount. I definitely encourage you to read it. There are at least a few different models, right, that you should consider. My two favorites that are go-to are expectancy theory and flow theory, right? So if you can take a look at those two, that might give you some sense for what you could do in that space. But as Sudeepta pointed out, comparing with others will get you exactly nowhere.
Yeah.
Certainly, sir. Certainly.
Lovely. I'm really sorry. I actually do have to jump off. Is that all right? I think.
Yeah, I think
that's fine, sir.
Yeah. Sorry. It looks like someone is just
really grateful, sir, to you, because we understand it's almost midnight there in US now, and you have been very informative as well as patient with a lot of queries also from our faculties. Thank you so much once again for extending your time.
It was a wonderful session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the interaction. I think the interaction made this very meaningful. I really appreciate that.
Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you. Allow me to drop off at this point.
Sure, sir.
Bye-bye.
It was a wonderful session, Mr. Chalam. It was very, very, there a lot of learning we had. And I think it helped me in planning my strategies from pushing to pulling.
That is amazing.
And a lot of things I have learned out of this. I think definitely it helps me in implementing some of the strategies, especially you talked about storytelling. I think that's very, very interesting, and a lot of things I've learned really today from both of you. I think it will go a long way, because if something is so good is implemented in any institution, it helps a lot of people, a lot of students and teachers. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your kind words.
Yes, really, it was already midnight, and it shows your interest. And
this is huge, lovely conversation. Yeah.
Okay. Really. Yeah. This knowledge sharing will definitely help us really now. And we will take it forward. I think we'll have a lot more discussion even in future, and I think we'll get connected whenever it is required.
I look forward to it. We both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good.
Thank you so much, Chalam sir, for joining here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Sudeepta ma'am, shall we conclude it, or you want to?
No, I think we are done. Like if there aren't any more questions, we have covered everything.
Participants, any more questions from your side, or shall we conclude the session? If no questions from your end, I see no questions. Yes, there is one. How to align passion with availability of jobs?
There are two ways here. One is passion, align it with entrepreneurship. It doesn't have to be always job. Like, for example, yes, maybe there is a thought that entrepreneurship always requires a lot of money to build it, but that's also not true. Entrepreneurship, micro-entrepreneurship, which is it is called in terms of economics, it does not require a lot of money, but people are passionate, people are doing it, and they start small and they grow, right? And we as a country need more and more of these micro-entrepreneurs. And if as a professor, as a teacher, you can encourage students who are really passionate about something and can manage that, then it's good. Like, I'm not sure what the package students are getting going out of your college. But if the package what they're getting is normally like what a BCom graduate fresher gets is like somewhere between 15 to 20,000 a month, like taking up an entrepreneurial stint, that person will get the same kind of money, like whether it is any kind of thing. That is one. The other is passion. If a person is a good communicator, the person can easily go, if the passion is that they write blogging, they like writing and all those kind of things, you can very easily direct them towards profession, because they can do a lot. Like journalism is not the only thing. Like bloggers, influencers, look at how big the industry of influencers is becoming. Like influencers, like I now know someone in Delhi who's setting up a influencers academy, creating influencers, right? This is first time I heard it, but that's how big the market is. That goes back to the same thing, that what jobs happen in future, you never know. This is a new thing that is coming out, right? Similarly, if someone's passion is to just create impact, and the person is, that is what I was as a student, and I know many who were in my school and college, it is good for them to understand you may not make as much money as the corporates make, but then tailor your expectation, financial expectations, design a life around that, which you are happy with, but go to the development sector. It's a pretty big sector right now around the world, not only in India. So there are multiple ways. It depends on what the passion is, right? And you can always say, which I guided my brother who is much younger to me long back, that, okay, you want money, but you have certain passion. So go ahead and make money for the first 10 years and do something on the side, which is your passion project, which he did. He continued. And once in 10 years, when you have enough money in your life, your passion project can become your mainstream project. And much later now, he works for a very renowned, reputed bank in India in the finance side of the bank, not in retail banking. He is able to merge his passion and profession because the money part is done. And then he could pick up his passion project, which is also an experience, parallel experience he has created along with the job in a bank. And with that, he has merged both of them. And he has completely moved towards, like, more of the role that the bank created for him, because they did not want to lose him as an employee. And they saw a lot of value in the passion project that he was doing. It could become the next gig in Indian economy. I can't reveal that very much about it, but I'm just giving you an example. So these kind of things can also be told to the students, that if you have financial constraint, keep your passion, pursue it, but have a career for at least 5 years, 10 years, till you are financially stable, and then keep pursuing the passion on the side and make it your main career after that. Career switching is now not a big problem, actually. Like, I have switched careers at 32, 33, much later in life. So I don't see switching careers as really a difficult thing these days. It's not considered a taboo anymore. So people can always switch later. Does that answer your question, Vinay? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So I guess there are no more questions. So I'll just quickly wrap up the things that we would discuss today. So we started the session with Chalam sir, where he talked about the storytelling aspect of students, where he also emphasized upon street smartness. Also, we got to know that, yes, as teachers, we have to encourage students in storytelling and do not underestimate an average student or overestimate a topper. Whoever it is, I think, can make it big in life. Irrespective of even the gender or the physical disability. And also we learned about 5 C's, that is critical thinking, creativity, communication skills, collaboration, and confidence, which are very important. And getting students to get interested into what they want to do. I think your strategy is a very good thing, that is giving them a 2 weeks time to understand, to get the newspaper facts which interest them, which we can understand where they actually interest in. And also Chalam sir spoke about getting students to take charge, and one should get enough opportunities to get perfect. And we very well agree to it that ability to iterate will help them to pick themselves up. That as and when they fail, they can take themselves up again and try again. So instead of pointing things out at other people's mistakes, that if for some reason, for other reasons, we should take the onus. As teachers also, we should take the responsibility and see how better we can do it, and how in a good way we can take our students ahead. And also he spoke about the difference between US and India. US, they are more assertive, that is not being very rude, yet putting their points across in a good manner. And also he emphasized upon the facts of having how soft skills are very important, unlike the hard skills also. That is, it takes years to develop those soft skills, like your hard skills, it can be developed just by studying. And now he also talked about course correction, which is very, very important and a key takeaway today. That is, anybody can switch their interest or switch their jobs any point of time if they feel that they are not fit into it. And also he talked a little bit about sponsorship, which was very relevant. And also he told the teachers not to spoon feed anymore. That is a very relevant point, because we have also seen this, that teachers keep spoon feeding, and at a point of time students feel helpless because they can't take those decisions in life. So I think it is this time that we can stop spoon feeding them and prepare them from the better tomorrow. And yes, very valid point that we all should really appreciate is whatever efforts we are putting, wherever our students are reaching tomorrow, it is going to create those industry connections, which is a growing point for any institution. And Sudeepta ma'am also talked about a lot of things there, that is pathfinding, mentorship, and how actually we are involving ourselves in making the younger generation insecure. I think it's high time we stop doing that and we take the responsibility of making them very secure by giving the positive aspects of life. And Chalam sir also talked about the three things, that is inviting the students to give a talk about, that is if they're doing a part-time job, inviting the managers to talk about their experiences, and also inviting the alumni, which will really help the students to get the job market expectations and how it is different than the subject matter that they are studying, if there is any difference. And then set a high performance standards to them, that is how part-time jobs or internships or new businesses can help them, that is to raise a standard to the next level. And also to have a partnership with RaiseToPi, which definitely we will look about collaborating with you ma'am to take our students to newer heights. And also encouraging students to take charge, which was really very informative from both of you. Wonderful session, and it was very elaborative and valuable session from both of you, ma'am. Thank you so much once again. So to formally conclude this session, I request Mrs. Lavanya Balaji, Assistant Professor, School of Postgraduation Studies, to extend a formal vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. The success of this webinar can be seen through the constant involvement of our faculty members and our principal. It was seen taking note of a few key points throughout. So again, the credit goes to our principal, Dr. S. Anil Kumar, without whose support this one-day faculty webinar wouldn't have been possible. I extend my heartfelt thanks to sir. I thank our speakers, Mr. Chalam Plachikkat, co-founder RaiseToPi, Seattle, USA, Ms. Sudeepta Banerjee, RaiseToPi, giving us important insights on mentoring by creating psychological safety to individuals, the relevance of matured behavior in understanding a person's mindset, and keeping a goal in mind in a fuzzy way while mentoring was very much material to the current scenario. Thank you again for sharing your thoughts. I welcome Placement Officer from RVC, Dr. Ranganathan. I thank IQSC Head, Dr. M.S. Nagraj, and the team. I thank the entire team of Paryapti with Dr. Adupama, Placement in Charge, and Professor Vandana Revankar, Event in Charge, for the initiative taken by them in organizing this event. I thank all the faculty members for their constant involvement and participation throughout the webinar. Thank you so much. Over to you, Vandana, madam.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you too for making this event a success.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice day.
Everyone, have a nice day.
Take care and be safe.